Tony gon' give us for sure. We want more, plenty more. And Tony gon' give us for sure. We want more quality, more integrity, more ability. Floyd cannot do that for we. We want more, plenty more. And Tony gon' give us for sure. So we voting for Tony, we voting for Tony, we voting for plenty more. And Tony gon' give us for sure. We want more, plenty more. And Tony gon' give us for sure. We want more quality, more integrity, more ability. Floyd cannot do that for we. We want more, plenty more. And Tony gon' give us for sure. So we voting for Tony, we voting for Tony, we voting for Tony. And the BLP,
As yet,
we
from the St.
voting
George
for
Secondary School, the counting center, the electoral officials, they're still going through those boxes. Of course, as we get the numbers, we will hear what's happening there from our very own Lisa Broom and Ryan Broom. But it's back to the discussion with our moderator, Shane Jones.
Thanks a lot, Shane. And I want to start this session with Hartley, because we have you here and we know you are a leading political strategist, not only in Barbados, you've had quite a bit of success throughout the region as well. Looking at the election campaign, one of the claims leveled by the Democratic Labour Party was that the Barbados Labour Party was not dealing with the issues for St. George North itself, but more national issues. Tell me a bit about that strategy and how you saw that working.
Yeah, I felt in that regard that the Democratic Labour Party made a slight error in that there are 30 constituencies in Barbados. If you are in a position where you've lost all 30 constituencies, you needed, to my mind, to make an attempt to recapture interests in all 30 constituencies. If you narrowed this by-election down to street lights and pit toilets and overgrown bush and house lots and jobs for sister and auntie and cousin, you have now excluded and you're boring the persons in the other 29 constituencies. And as I said earlier, we've had by-elections before that impacted the country and that set a stage for general elections that followed. And that is where I felt, for example, that the idea of seeking to pin the government down to domestic St. George North issues, I'm not persuaded that that was in the best interest of the Democratic Labour Party, because I felt that the government would have been more vulnerable in dealing with national issues and then asking the voters in St. George North to use that as a referendum on the performance of the government in some sectors. But turning it into a domestic constituency, 9,000 person campaign, I think was a strategic error, because also it was a 7 week campaign. It was a long campaign.
Yeah, yes.
And that is a long time to be speaking about bush, to be speaking about lights, to be speaking about potholes, to be speaking about pavilions that were not started, because after a while it becomes very repetitive. And I felt that the Democratic Labour Party therefore should have come with enough pressure on the government to set the tone and to determine what would be the issues, rather than it came and it essentially sought to play catch up and tried to fist fight on the domestic St. George North issues, which after 2-3 weeks it became a bit boring for many persons. And you saw it in terms of the viewership. At no point did either party attract the type of viewership that we saw in 2018, because significantly you can tell that the voters in Christchurch said, there's nothing in this for me. Voters in St. Philip said, there's nothing in this for me. Voters in St. Lucie said, there was nothing in this for me. And I think that was smart on the part of the incumbent, but I think it was a strategic error on the part of the opposition not to have drawn the government out on some issues. The throne speech, for example, you had a throne speech a couple of weeks prior to the calling of the general election, and there were a couple interesting issues that were raised in the throne speech that I thought the opposition would have force the government out on, force the government on the defensive, start a discussion, but nothing of the sort. It was primarily domestic St. George North issues on which there was really not a lot to sustain public interest.
Okay, I see you nodding, Corey. What are your thoughts on that strategy?
Oh, many. Well, Hartley's been speaking to those issues from the perspective of a strategist. Looking at these issues from a purely analytical perspective, let's be honest, we have a neophyte leader of the Democratic Labour Party. If the conversation we're having for the time being is about the Democratic Labour Party, we have a neophyte leader and we have a neophyte candidate. So when I look at the Democratic Labour Party campaign, I'm seeing where that leader's and her party by extension, where the comfort point currently lies. They're coming out of the background of the 2018 election and the 10-year government and whatever that has left in the minds of the voters. We've had some conversation broadly around whether or not the Democratic Labour Party should apologize to the public or how they should put themselves out moving forward. Reference has been made to having a consultant come in and speak to the Democratic Labour Party. So now we're now seeing the products of that. We have the leader saying that they were not prepared, that did not give them enough time to prepare, as though they are now being forced into a position and they were having to be reactive rather than proactive. Whereas for the past couple of years, we might not have seen the overtures coming out of the Democratic Labour Party that we might have expected to see, having gone through 2018 and now having the opportunity to name a new team and at least show the public what you're about. So we finally have our candidate now from the Democratic Labour Party, who is Floyd Reefer for this by-election. We could not have known who that person might be. Now we know, and he is new to this. I'm not dissing his game. I think that he had a reasonable campaign, all things considered. But I think that when you look at the campaign that they put out, as Hartley was commenting on it, we see where the Democratic Labour Party's comfort point is currently. I don't think that they're comfortable having that conversation about at the national level, because you as leader, being a neophyte, you might look out and you see all those 30 constituencies and you feel that you have to battle all that at one time. Are you really feeling up to the task? Because as Hartley was referring to 2011, and at that time you had seasoned now past Owen Arthur, the late Owen Arthur. He would have had that experience in order to put forward the issues as they were put forward in the 2011 campaign. That might not be the case for Ms. DePisa. She might not feel up to the task of having that campaign that speaks to those 30 constituencies which the Barbados Labour Party just came from dominating. So maybe the focus was, let's win this one campaign, let's go after this one campaign, let's speak to these issues that are seen to be affecting these people, or as we see them affecting these people, and try to win their hearts. That's what I got from the Democratic Labour Party. That's what I got from Floyd Reefer coming out as a candidate. Give me a chance, why not me? Whereas you had the smaller parties saying the same thing. So some of that conversation might have been lost, because the only national event that stood out throughout that whole Democratic Labour Party campaign to me was the debate. And the debate stood out to people for the wrong reasons, as we then saw. So that's the perspective that I have. That's the purely analytical perspective, unlike Hartley's strategic perspective.
Yeah, you made the point of Floyd's candidacy and the why not me, give me a chance. I saw that coming on pretty strong towards the end of the Democratic Labour Party's campaign, and judging on some of the things that I saw on social media, it seemed like if that resonated with quite a few people, the why not me, the democracy thing. What about that strategy you think, Hartley?
My concern has to do with the way that Floyd was packaged. I think that the Barbados Labour Party succeeded in putting the Democratic Labour Party on the defensive with respect to Floyd Reefer as a candidate. I thought personally Floyd was an excellent candidate, but Floyd was not allowed to be Floyd.
Yes.
And in making that point, I want to return to the St. Michael Northwest by-election. I recall when Clyde Maskell, an academic, an intellectual, came up against Mark Williams, a show promoter, a social commentator. And while Clyde was dealing with the macro issues and the economy and the outlook and what have you, there was the famous line from Mark Williams that he didn't care about that, cat or rat. He was interested in the welfare of the people of Deacon's Farm and Goodland and St. Stephen's Hill and what have you.
Another Donald Trump line.
And the thing about that is that Mark did not win the by-election. But he persisted by being Mark. He persisted running a few errands for some senior persons, doing a few favors, helping the youngsters with some footballs and doing what have you. The general election came around and he won because Mark remained Mark. And people got to know Mark. People got to realize that Mark is who he is, and they give him a chance. My concern is that Floyd was made to feel, to some extent, inferior in that regard. He was given these, every night reading these scripts that clearly were not written for him. Whoever wrote the scripts wrote scripts for themselves, and therefore I think that Floyd would have suffered a very unfortunate experience whereby after 6 weeks we still don't know Floyd. In the last 2 weeks or so, he began, as you correctly said, to come into his own. He began to ad-lib a bit, and you then begun to get a feel, well, this guy has something in him. But the notion that you had to script him from good night to goodbye, I think was an error. I think candidates, no matter how, this is Barbados, some of us speak the Queen's English, some of us speak Bajan, some of us joke, laugh. I didn't think that ought to have been made the issue that it developed into. And unfortunately, I don't know that at the end of the exercise that Floyd was allowed to shine and to come through the way that he could have if his handlers had believed in him and had allowed him to be himself in his portrayal of his concerns in the campaign.
Let's talk about the candidates a bit then, because I made note that you said Floyd was an excellent candidate, but he wasn't allowed to be himself. So was he really an excellent candidate, or was he an excellent choice?
I think he was both. Not if you place all your emphasis on winning or losing. I do not think that the Democratic Labour Party could have come up with a candidate. I mean, no votes have been counted as yet, but I would be very surprised if the Democratic Labour Party were to win this by-election tonight. Having said that, therefore, it didn't matter who the candidate would have been. I didn't think it made a difference who the candidate would have been for this by-election. But I felt a guy like Floyd, that name is a powerful name in St. George. I'm a St. George man. And I am aware that for the last 20 odd years, the Democratic Labour Party has been trying to get a reefer on its ticket. It is a powerful name. And just as the Odell is a powerful name. And I felt that Floyd was an excellent investment. I think that they could have contested this election on the basis of it being a midterm referendum on the government. I think it could have used the opportunity to introduce Floyd, let him come in, let him develop. He perhaps would have lost, but he would have come out, done a little better here, a little okay there, and it would not be a case where tonight it is now a showdown whereby there's going to be a winner and a loser. He could have won the hearts of persons, and he could have lived to fight another day in 2 years' time in the general election, and you could have invested in him as the face of the party going forward. But I think that the notion of putting everything into winning or losing, and this guy is a winner, this guy is going to land a knockout punch. If he does not win tonight, I would be keen to have a conversation or to hear from him his intention, his outlook on going forward, because you do not come into politics on the notion that victory is the only option. This is going to be a long learning experience, and I believe that Floyd could have been handled better. And even win, lose, or draw tonight, I felt that he could have emerged from this experience a stronger person and a more attractive person going forward.
Okay, I'm going to come to you, Corey, shortly on Floyd as a candidate. But Hartley, you said that the Democratic Labour Party for almost 20 years, or even more than 20 years, was trying to get a reefer on the ticket. What does that say about the President, Verla Pisa, getting a reefer on her ticket so closely after winning re-election of the presidency of the party?
At the time, I felt it was a coup. I felt that she did well to have gotten a reefer to agree. I know enough to tell you that his uncle, who spoke on the platform, had been approached many times to be a candidate, his other uncles as well. So I felt that Verla should be credited for being able to persuade Floyd to enter the race and to be a candidate for the Barbados Labour Party. Where I differ is that I'm not sure that they reasoned with him this is going to be a long haul. This is going to be, you know, a 5-10 year investment. Are you willing to commit the next 10 years, you know, where you take a stab at it now and another stab later and eventually win? Glenn Clark lost that seat first when he first ran. He stuck around and he won next time. The difference here is that I don't think, I get the feeling that Verla may have given the impression that victory was doable, was in sight. And from that perspective, it could be hard on a first-time candidate if you have victory as your only scenario, your only option from tomorrow morning that you're going to be the parliamentary representative. If the numbers don't look as I suspect they won't look, it is going to be difficult to get his confidence up and for him to keep going for another 2 years into a general election.
It's interesting because I spoke to someone who said that, that they know for certain that Floyd genuinely believes that he can win the race. Corey, what are your thoughts on Floyd Reefer as a candidate?
All right, well, let me start big and work my way into Floyd. Hartley said that, and I know why, I understand why he said it, that it didn't matter who they put forward. I do think it mattered who they put forward, because I know that one set of people that I don't think that voters would have wanted to see in St. George North would have been the outgoing MPs from the 2018 election. So I don't think they would have wanted to see anybody new. I mean old. I think that they want to see somebody new, and I think that putting forward a Floyd Reefer was as well as they could have done in the circumstances. I thought that they found somebody who had a national profile. They found somebody also who was known in the constituency. He may not be comfortable yet at this political level, speaking on the platform, but as Hartley said, maybe that's not entirely his fault. Maybe that is what was scripted for him, and we got the scripted version of Floyd as opposed to natural Floyd. I do think that Shane and Hartley, I think the opposition parties, if we can look at them all together, I think that they're feeling ensconced. I think they're feeling ensconced by the Barbados Labour Party. You look out across the political landscape and you see red. All you see is red. So the national conversation that they're seeking to have at any one time, they feel as though they have to define it within the context of what is there now and attack that and try to hew out a kind of presence within that, or something that can appeal to voters within that, as opposed to building a profile from scratch and coming forward. The 2018 election showed us where the minds of the nation were at, and in that sense we know that the smaller parties coming in, the sense was that the Democratic Labour Party was not going to win that election, so it made sense for them then to define the conversation as alternatives to the Barbados Labour Party. So that didn't come to fruition. The Barbados Labour Party won all of the seats, and we now have a continuation of what they would be doing, where now the Barbados Labour Party is the force. So they're still kind of like trying to define themselves within that. They're still trying to define the conversation that they are trying to have people have within the Barbados Labour Party and the dominance that they have over the political landscape. And I think that that's why you see Floyd Reefer seeming to be scripted. I think that that's why you see some of the other candidates having this conversation at the national level, because they look out and they see this red all across the political landscape and they don't feel that they can have a national conversation. Let's stick to these issues. Let's stick to the pit toilets. Let's stick to the bush. Let's stick to the houses that can be built, because that's what we can speak to. And the Barbados Labour Party is kind of dominating their capacity to build a message to the public at this time.
Okay, let's look at Toni Moore Hartley. For many people, she came to left field, joining the party just a couple of days before actually being announced, or the day of. Tell me about her candidacy, the selection, how she grew as the campaign went on.
Yeah, I think Toni Moore, as General Secretary of the Barbados Workers Union, again, just as Floyd was a good find, I think Toni Moore was a coup. I think to have gotten her to agree to run on the ticket of the Barbados Labour Party was a positive reflection on the leadership of the party. But interestingly, throughout the campaign, Toni Moore did not remain the General Secretary of the Barbados Workers Union. She went around and she developed her own identity. And if you listen to her, she reflected the views and the vibes she was getting from the community, from the canvassing, from the interactions. And she became Toni, as opposed to the General Secretary of the Barbados Workers Union. You get the feeling that in just 7 to 8 weeks, there's now someone whom the people of St. George North know as Toni, as opposed to her official capacity. And that is where I think that her strength was, because that ability to interact with people and to break away both from the Barbados Labour Party and the Barbados Workers' Union and to become Toni, the girl from next door, I think that would have worked in her favor, because she is not tonight seen as an outsider, but people know her. It is similar to what you would recall in 2006, 2007, David Thompson did, when persons knew him as a little red boy who was born in England and, you know, with a gold spoon and what have you. He then began to tell his story. He then spoke about Fitz Village and about walking and about having to do homework with a lamp and what have you. And persons got to know, and he was liming around the place and what have you. And before your eyes, he was no longer who you thought you knew. He became David, you know, and persons knew him. And I feel in that regard that in the last 6-7 weeks, Toni Moore must be credited for allowing herself, for yielding herself to the people and allowing herself to be known by them. And I believe that strategy, I think, would have worked for her. How she settles back into the substantive position from next week, we'll wait and see. But as of tonight, she is the St. George North Toni. And I think that that's a positive thing.
Were the opposition parties able to fit what they were trying to get her into in terms of a betrayer of the workers, or was Toni able to show that she was no different from many others that went before in similar situations like Saroy?
Yeah, I think in that regard, the strength of the Barbados Labour Party was a tremendous asset to her, because she was not forced to carry that load or to deal with that opposition and those attacks on her own. You had night after night, there were defense and persons spoke in defense of her, not only her parliamentary colleagues or the colleagues in Parliament, but you had the former General Secretary, Sir Roy Trotman, who actually physically went on the platform and endorsed her. This is a former General Secretary of the Barbados Workers' Union who ran on a Democratic Labour Party ticket, who came and endorsed her. So I think that she was not placed under enough pressure by the government, by the opposition, to have to deal with that issue. I think by the time she got to the platform each night, you found that issue had been dealt with by 3 or 4 preceding speakers. And that is the type of strategic approach that one saw to it. I believe that history was against the Democratic Labour Party and the opposition parties in this regard, because when you could point out that all previous general secretaries of the Barbados Workers' Union were parliamentarians, when you can point out that several former candidates of the Democratic Labour Party were trade unionists, when you can point out that the current assistant general secretary of the Democratic Labour Party is a trade unionist, that argument you found really was found wanting. And I would be very surprised if tonight it succeeds, because I don't know that this being a trade unionist from when it ran counter to being in politics, because all is about representation. And I felt that Toni defended the issue of being a worker representative, being a representative of people very well. And I would be very surprised if it did not work in her favor later this evening.
Okay, before I get to you, Corey, I just must let everyone know that we are actually standing by to go live to St. George Secondary. I think, okay, we can go straight there now for the first set of votes.
Okay, we're just trying to jostle David with all
we're still following.
that are here, but
We're all good?
yes, it is, and we're trying to follow the protocols.
Returning Officer Winston Estwick.
Okay, I'm going to give you the total as of 2 boxes, GE1 and GE2. GE1 was broken down into 2 boxes, that PD, GE1. A to H, Grosvenor 4, Mitchell 2, Moore 140, Phillips 6, Reefer 65, Walrun 0, 0 spoiled. GE1 I to Z, Grosvenor 1, Mitchell 0, Moore 93, Phillips 2, Reefer 67, Walrun 2, spoiled 0. Giving you a total for the polling district GE1 of Grosvenor 5, Mitchell 2, Moore 233, Phillips 8, Reefer 132, Waldron 2, 0 spoil. Now for the polling district of GE2, broken into 3 boxes, GE2 A to D, Grosvenor 4, Mitchell 1, Moore 135, Phillips 10, Reefer 39, Waldron 2, 0 spoil. GE2 E to L, Grosvenor 8, Mitchell 1, Moore 116, Phillips 4, Reefer 53, Waldron 0, spoil 0. GE2 N to Z, Grosvenor 0, Mitchell 0, Moore 145, Phillips 3, Reefer 70, Waldron 5, spoil 2. The spoiled votes consisted of one who voted for two candidates and one where the person put a line through all the names of the candidates. Giving you a total for GE2 polling district, Grosvenor 12, Mitchell 2, Moore 396, Phillips 17, Reefer 162, Waldron 7 with 2 spoiled, giving you an overall total for the 2 polling districts, Grosvenor 17, Mitchell 4, Moore 629, Phillips 25, Reefer 294, Waldron 9 with 2 spoiled. That's the end. I'll give you more boxes as they come down.
Thank you, Mr. Estwick. And there you have it, Shane and Shane. It's 694, I believe it was 294 in this initial count. In terms of the 2 major parties, the Barbados Party and Democratic Party, as I'm sure your honest would have pointed out, probably the 2 front runners here. Ms. Moore right now at 604 and Mr. Reefer at 294 in this first set of boxes. It's back to you in the studio.
Okay, thanks a lot, Ryan. So, gentlemen, the first set of votes coming in. I'm sure you've been making your notes. Who wants to go first? Take this first bite at how the statistics are looking for those first 2 boxes of GE1 and GE2.
Well, interestingly, we're seeing where there is the voter turnout is quite slightly lower than it was in 2018. We're seeing a total in 2018, there was 924 from the 2 boxes for the Barbados Labour Party, Glen Clark, as opposed to 629 for a total of 629 for the for Toni Moore. And as far as the Democratic Labour Party is concerned, you're seeing there was 294 last election as opposed to 168 now. So both parties, you would have seen there's a significant decline on that. In 2013, which is would have been an interesting scenario, you saw essentially we've gone back to 2013 numbers because you're seeing 680 votes combined for Glen Clark in 2013 from those 2 boxes. This is now 629. So these results, just as we anticipated, are more mirroring the 2013 than the 2018 scenario, which was an aberration at the time. So interestingly, there are no surprises there, but it's still early days. But the trend in those 2 boxes is very interesting at this stage.
Corey, I see you there tinkering away. What do you have for us?
Well, I think Hartley gave a pretty good commentary. I think that's a little bit disheartening if you're one of these smaller parties, because I would put myself in their shoes tonight, and you would have hoped that having had this by-election, and I guess you have an opportunity, whereas we've been speaking thus far before the numbers came in about this national conversation and the candidates and whether or not the campaigns in St. George North should have been national campaigns versus being local campaigns. The smaller parties would have felt like, okay, here's a conversation we can have, we can compete, as opposed to having the large cacophony of a general election and trying to compete with the larger parties on that scale. But yet still, when we look at the numbers here coming in, these would be fairly disheartening for the smaller parties. For Floyd Reefer, wherever he is right now, I imagine that these are not what he would have been hoping to see. I do think that still, as we've been saying, we will see if he is going to reach the 40% mark. He will need a significantly greater performance in the remaining boxes to actually have a greatly improved performance on what has gone before him, or to even approximate what took place in 2013 and not 2018. So I think that these two boxes would have been disappointing for Floyd Reefer as well.
Hartley?
Yeah, interestingly, if we go into further detail, if St. George North, and I'm speaking now perhaps as a true St. George man, as a homeboy myself, the St. George North constituency is known as on top the hill and below the hill. Essentially, that's east of the church, west of the church. Those two boxes would have incorporated Charro Bridge, Constant, Glebe Land, Lemon Bell, Lower Estate, Neil's Plantation, Parish Land, Salters, the Valley Development, Salters, Valley View, Constant, and also then Buckley Close and other parts of the valley, what have you, which are all below the road. For the Democratic Labour Party, the below the road should be better, because the support of the Democratic Labour Party, if you go back to the elections that would have been won by the late Cyril Walker, the Democratic Labour Party needs to do very well below the hill in that area if it is to be able to withstand the avalanche which will come from above the hill, which is the St. Jude's, Newberry, Rowans, Walkers, and then you have the northern part of the constituency, the Sweetvale and what have you. So this is not good news for the Democratic Labour Party.
Okay, so there you have it, the first set of votes being returned, and we're going to go back to Shane Seeley right now.
Yep, 694, close to 700 votes for Moore, close to 300 for Reefer, and single digits for the other parties. Of course, we will keep the votes coming, and we will have all of the latest updates right here on this by-election night as we cover the elections for you. Decision, St. George North.
Plenty more. And Toni gonna give us for sure. We want more, plenty more. And Toni gonna give us for sure. We want more quality, more integrity, more ability. Floyd cannot do that for we. We want more, plenty more. And Toni gonna give us for sure. So we voting for Toni, we voting for Toni, we voting for Toni. And the BLP, we voting for Toni, we voting for Toni, we voting for Toni. And the BLP, we want more, plenty more. And Toni gonna give us for sure. We want more, plenty more. And Toni gonna give us for sure. We want more quality, more integrity, more ability. Floyd cannot do that for we. We want more, plenty more. And Toni gonna give us for sure. So we voting for Toni, we voting for Toni, we voting for Toni. And the BLP, we want more, plenty more. And Toni gonna give us for sure. We want more, plenty more. And Toni gonna give us for sure. We want more quality, more integrity, more ability. Floyd cannot do that for we. We want more, plenty more. And Toni gonna give us for sure. So we voting for Toni, we voting for Toni, we voting for Toni. And the BLP, we voting for Toni, we voting for Toni, we voting for Toni. And the BLP, we want more, plenty more. And Toni gonna give us for sure.
Is now seriously damaged. This election, to my mind, should have been about the midterm performance of the government. And therefore, you should have had continuing tomorrow a discussion that would have been started over the last 6-7 weeks about a host of issues. What you have is that come tomorrow morning, based on what we are seeing, life resumes, and the Democratic Labour Party would not have established itself as organized, as ready, as refocused, and as revitalized. And that, to me, is what this election should have been all about. It should have been about the party wanting to send a message that it has gotten itself up, dusted itself off, and was ready to go forward. I think that strategically, if these numbers remain as they are, it could have some morale problems for the party, especially when you consider that the political leader would just have emerged from a party conference where she was re-elected. To have a result like this so far, just a couple of weeks later, would not be in her best interest.
Okay, Corey, any more on these stats?
Well, I want to pick up what Hartley is talking about, because you do have a leader who is coming out of the conference who know it was almost a bit fortuitous. I think that can't remember if exactly the by-election had been announced before or after the conference. Just before? Yeah, so it almost fell fortuitously for her to showcase herself, showcase the party, to finally find out what the Democratic Labour Party is about really heading into the 21st century. I'm still trying to establish as an analyst whether the Democratic Labour Party has caught up to the 21st century. I would say the Prime Minister has managed to capture the imagination of Barbadians in a way that I do not think that parties such as the Democratic Labour Party are. I still think they're yet to grasp the extent to which she has captured the imagination of Barbadians. And if we extend that into to St. George North, that's why I was saying this morning on Morning Barbados, that whereas you had a Floyd Reefer as a candidate who may have had some appeal for a couple of hundred voters that the Democratic Labour Party candidate might not have in 2018. So he might have attracted some popular support. He come from both there, as they say, and that might have some appeal. But whereas he had that on his side, you would have had a Toni Moore who had the appeal of the outgoing candidate, the outgoing MP, Glenn Clark. You would have had the appeal of her leader, who is Prime Minister Mia Mottley. And then she would have had her own personal appeal, as Hartley was referring to, which she is now, apart from having a high national profile, the presumption is that the trade union, people who tend to end up leading trade unions are also people who are accustomed to leading bodies of people, who are drawn to leadership positions, who have people skills that she would then be able to engage. I also saw Toni Moore then being able to use her strength of being comfortable speaking on that platform, maintaining a very even keel, not necessarily being the most exciting candidate. And I'm speaking about the TV debates, but maintaining a very even keel and showing that she's comfortable speaking on that platform as well. And I think that she would have had all of those strengths on her side, whereas you have a Floyd Reefer now who has a lot less working for him. I think that Verla de Pisa as leader now coming out of the leadership battle and having almost life renewed has missed the opportunity here to do some big things.
Okay, and as you know, we have a big team covering this entire production. We've had Aaliyah Briggs and Krista Hoyt out on the road, and they've been gathering some information and some video and some clips to help to populate this broadcast. We're going to go to one of those clips right now.
The final results in terms of how we're doing our own analysis, we haven't sat to have that conversation as yet, because as you can see, we're still having polling agents coming back in, drivers coming back in, and we're dealing with that closeout business. So we haven't actually done that final analysis as yet, but we're quietly confident. We have been for quite a while. We've seen, and I'm sure you have seen as well, how people have responded to Floyd, and that matters a lot. We've had a tremendous outpouring of support. We're hoping that plays out with the X, and like you, we are going to watch the count and take careful note of what is going on.
I feel extremely elated to see Floyd possibly ascend the steps of Parliament as soon as possible. We're confident, not overconfident, but confident in his victory later on. It would warm my heart because I am a voter in St. George North, and I ensure that I voted for Floyd, and encourage persons in the constituency to vote for Floyd as well. And as a general party, we put our hands to the plow and assisted Floyd in everywhere possible. And I would like to thank the comrades for supporting the candidate, the best candidate.
Well, I'm feeling confident. I hope the people have done the right thing. I have batted with Floyd Reefer. I think he's the best person to take the constituency through. And the country, we really need an opposition right now. And the best person to do that is a young, vibrant, intelligent guy, someone we can trust with integrity and who will look after the people's needs.
And so there you had it, some initial reaction. Those shots would have been taken a little bit before the counting started. So gentlemen, we heard from one of the voters, the General Secretary of the Democratic Labour Party, as well as the President of the Democratic Labour Party. But no, so we have another clip I'm hearing, so let's take a look at that right now.
I was confident from the time the election called. I don't make that kind of sport. I never waste my vote yet. Never yet. Now I intend to be honest, the way how Tony talk to people and interact with people, and I'm not saying that the others don't, but you know, it's a different something. It's just a better, a good vibe. You understand? If Tony going through there, can stop her, touch her. She ain't gonna say, hold on a minute, I coming back. She gonna come back and she gonna talk. And you like that as a politician, you gotta be able to, you know, if some person call you, even if it's, let me say, a parole in town, touch, excuse me, you can't stop and go long. You gotta be able to talk to people, and you gotta be able to, you know, deal with people as a person. And as a party person, I labor until I die.
The BLP ran a very good campaign. We run a clean campaign as well. And we think, without a doubt, that Toni Moore will be successful when the votes are counted tonight.
She is the best candidate. From her track record, her experience and everything, I think she's the best candidate to represent the people, so that Labour should always function, because Labour is one of the main forces of development in any country, any part of the world. And when Labour has a strong voice, the people would benefit in the long run and in the short run.
Okay, so there you have it, clips from Democratic Labour Party supporters as well as Barbados Labour Party supporters. Hartley, one of the constituents there in St. George North mirrored something that you said, then Toni Moore evolving into a person that they felt they can reach out and touch and talk to and feel like a friend.
Yeah, and I think that was, that could only have been achieved. And you see, it is interesting that the Prime Minister, in her wisdom, opted to go with a rather long campaign, because to my mind that would have given Toni Moore the time that she would have needed to be known, to meet persons and to be met, where she moved from being the General Secretary of the Barbados Workers Union, who you read about in the newspaper and who you saw as a warrior on behalf of the workers and out in fires and what have you, to a human being. And in that regard, I believe that the length of time worked for her. While on the other hand, I think that Floyd would have started as a West Indies, former West Indies cricketer, a quote-unquote celebrity, someone whose name recognition was high. But I think with the passage of time, then you began to look for a bit more. You began to look for, okay, so what else is there? And I believe, therefore, that even from that perspective, the length of the campaign may also have worked against Floyd Reefer in that regard. Okay,
we've been looking at some of the candidates tonight. Peter, we haven't heard from you in a little bit. Let's look at Grenville Phillips II. Are you there, Peter?
Oh, okay. No, I thought we were looking at Grenville Phillips II.
No. Yeah, I'm asking you to analyze his candidacy.
Yeah. No, Mal. I wanna jump in on those results because I've been locked out for a little while. So let me jump in on those results very quickly and give you my reaction. I think the most significant thing that we're seeing, I mean, it's clearly a lead for Toni Moore, which tells me that there are going to be no surprises tonight. There's a swing against the Barbados Labour Party, moderate swing. I think that that is probably more attributable to COVID because when we look at the results, Toni Moore would have won G1 and the Barbados Labour Party would have won G1 and G2 in the 70s. So GE1 is at 63%, GE2 is at 69%. So both are still good. I mean, 60% is still good territory. Both instances has been a minor swing against the Barbados Labour Party, 10% and 14% in two boxes. The kind of swing that would be necessary to remove that seat is probably 30%, somewhere in that vicinity, and you're not seeing anything close to that in either of those. The other thing is the Democratic Labour Party is averaging around 30% in terms of support. They're falling. I thought would have been a reasonable objective, which is the 40% objective, which is consistent with what happened in 2013. So they're still underperforming. But the most significant thing is the swing that we are seeing. The reduction in voter participation that we're seeing. The voter turnout in GE1 was around 52%. The voter turnout in GE2 was less than 50%, around 46%. So generally speaking, the voter turnout is down. It's significantly down over 2018. My sense is that the Barbados Labour Party's big would have been impacted negatively by the lower voter turnout. But clearly the surprises, the third parties and so on are not figuring significantly in either regard. I don't know that it is necessary for us to have any prolonged conversation about them and their performance, certainly at this early stage. But what I can say is that low voter turnout, trending as we expected for the Barbados Labour Party. The Democratic Labour Party right now is doing better than they did in 2018, but they're not yet back to the 2030 marker.
Okay, thank you so much, Peter. Can you give me a little bit now, as we were looking at the candidate profiles, tell me a little bit of what you thought about Granville Phillips II throughout this campaign? Peter.
I'm not sure you asked the question, but I'm not hearing. You were saying something?
Yeah, I was asking you to give me your thoughts on Granville Phillips II's candidacy in this campaign.
You know, when we did the X-Trail program after the debate, I was saying that I thought that Granville Phillips didn't do badly at all. I think, to be quite honest, in terms of the debate, he was the person who stood out most in my mind. I expected Toni Moore to do well, and she did. The other guys that was there was he was himself. But Granville Phillips was a disciplined debater. He's made a reasonable contribution. If we can set ourselves apart from some of the outlandish things that Granville Phillips says from time to time, his views on Nelson, and the constant reference to himself being an engineer, I don't know that he's a bad candidate. The challenge is that he's not running a strategy that is a winning strategy. I'm fascinated that he commands an entire political party. He has, 20-something people that are willing to support him in that regard, because we appreciate that it's not going anywhere. But for what it's worth, I've always thought that he is an okay candidate. He doesn't get involved in scandal and gossip and that kind of thing in the back and forth. He sounds like a person who is anxious to make a contribution. His ideas are a bit off the charts sometimes, but ultimately he's not a bad candidate. I do wish that his resources could be harnessed by one of the traditional political parties that could probably put him to work in a way that could be quite beneficial for the development of this country.
I don't know if you've heard, Peter, but he said today that this election was going to be his last. He said it's put his family through a lot. I get the sense that he wants to continue, because he says that if he were able to win today, the public of St. George North would have to convince his family to let him run again next year. But Corey, let me ask you this. Is the voter turnout usually lower in by-elections than general elections?
Yeah, I think that does to be expected, Shane. I do think that there are more national elections, are more exciting events. There are more national discussions taking place. It's taking place at the party level, so it's something to inspire and motivate people to get out and vote. And we've been having a lot of discussion tonight about the idea that people don't feel as though they need to get out to vote, because their party doesn't really need them, or alternatively, it's a case where they feel as though they don't really want to be inconvenienced. Do I really want to go and stand up in a long line in this COVID environment and spend 20 minutes, 30 minutes trying to get into a voting center? Is it really worth my while? Because again, the party may not need me one way or another, or even if the party does not need me, I don't really think it's going to make that much of a difference. So St. George North, I've been making the point that this by-election, I do think that St. George North voters would have felt courted. I feel that they would have felt courted in a way that they would never have felt courted before. I certainly don't think that St. George North residents, constituents, would ever have dreamt that they would have had a national debate that was purely theirs. I don't think that they would ever have dreamt that. But certainly when the day comes around, it's always a question of, are people actually going to get out and do it? Are they going to get out there in their numbers? And I don't mean 50 people, which usually when we start talking about, oh, there are new candidates and this could make a big difference on what happens on election day, you might be talking about factors like personality traits for Floyd Reid, for example, that might flip 50 voters in one polling division, that might flip 200 voters, but we're talking about getting people out in the thousands. I think we had a registered vote number of 9,000 something for St. George North. So you start to get an idea of the kind of numbers that you really need to get people coming out in the droves. And again, the smaller parties and the Democratic Labour parties were really the ones that would have wanted to look out across the landscape today, Shane, and see St. George North constituents really getting out and voting to make them feel like, hey, these people have been energized by the campaign that we set before them, the campaigns that we set before them, this joint thing that we did last Friday night that actually made a difference to voters and that made them want to get out or what have you. But we have smaller numbers instead, and we see Toni Moore being the candidate who thus far from the two boxes that we've received numbers from, being the candidate who is being hurt the least by the lower voter turnout.
Hartley, you seem eager to...
I'm in support of that, but I'm concerned the notion that the by-election has to be about domestic issues. The St. Thomas by-election, if I take you back, remind you of that. That came at a time when the issues of the day had to do with that was the time of Undine Whittaker with the BUT, with the unions, and I know there were several issues dealing with the state of our schools, with rats, with sick buildings. The campaign captured a national interest. There were issues, as I said, with the economic outlook for the country, with respect to, we would just have experienced the Twin Tower disaster. You had, if I recall well, that was the time when Liz Thompson had just been fired as a minister of government. There were several national issues that could be debated rather than many of the issues that were raised in this election that were dismissed. Because many of the issues that surfaced here were knocked down night after night after night, and they never really surfaced. So I'm saying that at this stage, we could have used the last 6-7 weeks to have a national conversation and analysis of where we are in a COVID environment and going forward. We could have critiqued ministers of government. It's midterm. We could have looked sector by sector and done a critique of them. And I felt that there was an opportunity for opposing views to have established themselves as relevant, to have established themselves with alternative programs. What's your alternative to the BERT program? What's your alternative to the POS? What's your alternative to the FEED program? What's your view on the wedge issues that were contained in the throne speech? These are the sort of issues that I thought that the Democratic Labour Party in particular would have used the opportunity to be able to have a voice, to be able to articulate and capture the imagination of the country. Because you have a general election constitutionally due, in 24 months. Just over 24 months. And therefore, my view is that the notion that this had to be about St. George North domestic issues, I think that that was a fundamental error, and it is reflected here because now, in terms of a horse race, this, to my mind, should have been more than a horse race. The Democratic Labour Party should have re-established itself as a major force to be reckoned with, based on a philosophy and a vision, based on a new path. And I also would want to make this point now with respect to where the party is at, because it's a case in which you get the impression that the party is playing the hand it has been dealt. You do not have to play the hand you are dealt in politics anymore. And I take viewers, listeners back to, for example, there's situations where in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, when Sir James Mitchell was getting ready to retire, he was the leader of the incumbent party. He looked around his party. He looked around the country. He didn't find anyone whom he felt could have stepped into his shoes and ran with the ball with St. Vincent and the Grenadines. He came to Barbados, to the Caribbean Development Bank, for a gentleman by the name of Arnhem Eustace, and lured him back home, invited him back home, offered him a seat, offered him prime ministership. In St. Lucia, when the St. Lucia Labour Party came to the point in the 1990s, there was a leader by the name of Julian Hunt, who, as leader of the party, he was not only the leader, he was also the chief financier of the party. He kept the party going. But elders in the party sat one day and said, look, if we are to be taken seriously, if we are to topple Sir John Compton, if we are to succeed and become the government again, we have to look and see where we are going wrong, what do we need. Looking around the table, looking around the party, looking around the country, there's no one who fit the bill, who we feel can defeat John Compton. What did they do? They got on a plane, they flew to Guyana, to the then legal advisor to CARICOM, Dr. Kenny Anthony, a guy who had left politics over 15 years prior, and invited him back home. Dr. Anthony, come take over this party, take this party, lead this party, and lead it on. He did that. He came home, he led the party, he won, he defeated Sir John Compton. The same situation in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The Unity Labour Party just won a fifth term. The Unity Labour Party came out of amalgam of 4 nuisance parties that were not making any serious impression on the NDP, on the James Mitchell Party. The ULP was the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Labour Party. You had the Movement for National Unity, which was led by Ralph Gonzalez, a nuisance party at the time, and several others. They realized that construct was not working. They decided we had to come up with a formula that can win. They came together and they amalgamated, and they took Ralph Gonzalez, who was the leader of the smallest group, and said, you're the best man to lead us. You had an established party in Vincent Beach, led by Vincent Beach, who then decided, no, I'm going to step aside, you lead the party, you take over. The ULP won that election, and it has won 4 others since then. In St. Kitts, you had the People's Action Movement, a party that led St. Kitts and Nevis to independence, was in office for 15 years, okay, was defeated at the polls. The Labour Party was in office. Then you had a situation where PAM could not muster or could not come up with a formula for defeating the Labour Party. What did it do? It went into the bosom of the same Labour Party, plucked out one of its members, brought him over as an independent initially, and then asked him as an independent to lead PAM. His name is Dr. Timothy Harris. He is tonight the Prime Minister with no party, but he's leading a party that could not make office without him. So the point I am making is that at this stage we need to have a situation where the opposition forces in this country need to sit and look seriously at themselves and ask, what are we doing wrong? They need to do that, because what we are seeing, this is a continuation of 2018, and it looks to me, from what I can see, that 2022-23 will be a continuation of the same.
Okay, Hartley, I think we have a returning officer standing by, so I think we're going to go for some live results again now.
So you have your report to put back on? Because I want to tell him.
Okay, it doesn't seem like they're quite ready yet. But Hartley, it seems as though you are trying to leave a blueprint for the Democrat Labour parties, some of the smaller parties. Is there someone overseas, I was listening very carefully, that you think the Democratic Labour Party can reach out to?
That's a very interesting question. I haven't given it that much thought, but
Really?
I know that the Democratic Labour Party can do better than it is doing right now. I know it can do better. And if the solution is not now in George Street, if the solution is not now in Barbados, then go into the diaspora. There are Barbadians all over this world who you can look to and turn to and say, look, come, we need some inspiration. If you do not find an opposite, someone to match Mayor Motley in Barbados, you're not going to defeat her. To be the man, you have to beat the man. And you cannot come with a Kadir story, we need a voice, we need a voice in Parliament. You have to defeat her.
Okay, I think we're going to go live now for more results.
GE2, the next polling district will be GF1, which is broken into 3 boxes. GF1 A to E, Grosvenor 1, Mitchell 0, Moore 116, Phillips 3, Reefer 77, Walron 5, 1 spoil. GF1 F to M, Grosvenor 5, Mitchell 0, Moore 138, Phillips 5, Reefer 108, Walron 1, 0 spoil. GF1 N to Z, Grosvenor 3, Mitchell 1, Moore 130, Phillips 3, Reefer 99, Walron 2, 0 spoiled. Subtotal or total for that PD GF1 will be Grosvenor 9, Mitchell 1, Moore 384, Phillips 11, Reefer 284, Walron 8, spoiled 1. Bringing a total for 3 boxes GE1, GE2, GF1 to Grosvenor 26, Mitchell 5, Moore 1013, Phillips 36, Reefer 578, Walron 17, and spoiled 3. Now GF2 broken into 4 boxes, A to C, Grosvenor 1, Mitchell 0, Moore 122, Phillips 3, Reefer 82, Walron 3, spoiled 0. GF2 D to H, Grosvenor 2, Mitchell 0, Moore 124, Phillips 5, Reefer 52, Walron 1, spoiled 0. GF2 I to R, Grosvenor 0, Mitchell 0, Moore 123, Phillips 2, Reefer 61, Walron 2, spoiled 1. And GF2 S to Z, Grosvenor 1, Mitchell 0, Moore 109, Phillips 3, Reefer 65, Walron 3, spoiled 0. So the total for PD GF2 would be Grosvenor 4, Mitchell 0, Moore 478, Phillips 13, Reefer 260, Walron 9, spoiled 1, giving you a total after PDs GE1, GE2, GF1, and GF2. Grosvenor 30, Mitchell 5, Moore 1,491, Phillips 49, Reefer 838, Walron 26, as 4 spoiled. Thank you.
Could you recap the first 3 boxes for us again?
Okay, so, there you have it, the leading candidates, obviously the Barbados Labour Party's Toni Moore and the Democratic Labour Party's Floyd Reefer, the 2 leading horses in the division. It's back to you in the studio, Shane and Shane.
Thank you so much there, Ryan Broom, giving us that latest count. Moore is etching towards the 1,500 mark, while Reefer is just over 800 votes. Those are the 2 leading horses in the race, as you heard Ryan say there. A lot more to come as we bring you the results of the by-election in this broadcast of Decision St. George North. So we just had the latest count from St. George Secondary, the counting center. And Moore is firmly in charge right now, leading with well over 1,400 votes, going nearly up to the 1,500 mark. And this is after 3 boxes would have been counted. Let me get that correct. GE1 and 2, and then there was GF1 and GF2. Back to you, Shane, and the discussion continues with Shane, Hartley, Peter, and Corey.
Thanks a lot, Shane. Well, Peter, let me come to you because we've been trying to look at these votes coming in and trying to compare them with previous elections. But we know 2018 was a wash. So 2013 is the real comparison that we're looking at, 2013 and this election today. What are you seeing? Okay, we're not getting Peter. Let me get to you, Hartley.
Yes. Interestingly, from a Democratic Labour Party perspective, that was a disaster. Because GF1 and GF2 is really, as I said, below the hill. This also includes where Floyd Reefer is from. And therefore, those 2 boxes that just counted were their strongest boxes.
Yeah.
They are traditionally their strongest boxes, which are in the whole Flat Rock, the whole Harry Cox Road, Charles Rowe Bridge, Parish Land, parts of the lower parts of Roans, where you see the red walls there, Salters, coming right down into Old's Land and Roan's Cottage below part. Those are the 2 boxes that they should have won, and won very strongly if they were to remain a significant force. And I'll give you an example of what I'm speaking about. In 2018, if you want to start at 2018, that was actually GF1 was the best performance of the Democratic Labour Party, where it got
644
165 and 133 in 2018.
Yeah.
Okay. In 2013, it was also their best boxes, where they got 490 and 390. So for Floyd to have been beaten in his home boxes, those 2 boxes, this really is not looking good at all, because from here you go back over the hill, and once you go back over the hill and you go north, you are going to find yourself, it is not going to get any better.
So you were wondering, you were saying that you didn't think it should be black or white, win or loses, how good the Democratic Labour Party could have done. You were seeing, from what we've seen so far, what's your verdict now on how they're doing?
Yes, because that's precisely the point I was making earlier, that the Democratic Labour Party should never have made this about winning or losing. That should never have come into the equation at all. It should have been about lighting a fire under the Barbados Labour Party administration. Because having thrown your all into this election, where you brought out all your forces and where you reflected interview after interview, the political leaders saying, we are confident, the feedback is good, the government is, the latest term was buyer's remorse, people are upset, people are angry, we're going to win. When you psych your party up for that, and you psych your candidate up for that, and then you're getting this type of a referendum, this type of demonstration of support for the government and opposition to your candidate, even though the numbers are not what they were in 2018, there must be some worry for the Democratic Labour Party, because this is now placing the Democratic Labour Party just where it found itself on the 25th of May, 2018. And it means that 2.5 years has really made no difference. And if something is not done, it's not a good scenario at all.
What is that showing you, Corey?
I mean, Shane, I think that Hartley's on point. First thing, let me acknowledge Hartley's point. But I think the age of social media has given us a lot of armchair political pundits. So for the last couple of years, I've listened to conversations about the seats in Barbados and which ones are now up for grabs, which ones will definitely change hands in the next election. And here we have a by-election now that's being presented to us to show where the minds of a small portion of the voting public of Barbados, where their minds are. And it would seem from the numbers that we're seeing coming in so far that we're heading to a very similar result as of right now, because a lot could change in the remaining 24 months or whenever we do have the election, that we head into a very similar result. And in this instance, we would no longer be able to look at the previous leadership of the Democratic Labour Party. As I have noted over time, that's where the most significant portion of the blame has been cast, the previous leadership of the Democratic Labour Party. This will now fall squarely on the shoulders of the newly re-elected leader of the Democratic Labour Party. She's now being given a test coming straight out of that re-election that she's managed to gain, and now we're seeing what she has been able to reap. So now we've had a campaign, as Hartley has been pointing out, that's been about winning and losing. I think that there's been a misjudgment of where people's minds are. I think that there's been a misjudgment in terms of the ways that they perceive themselves and how they think that the Barbadian public perceive them. There's one thing that the Democratic Labour Party continues to do, which from an analytical perspective is very frustrating to observe, which is that they continue to have this conversation with themselves. The most recent things I saw come out of Floyd Reefer's campaign, they would have thumped that cricketer issue that became controversial mid-campaign. They would have thumped that as much as they could to try and draw some sympathy out of that. I'm sure they thought that they had a lot of movements of votes coming out of that. They would have had, I've seen videos of Floyd Reefer with him walking and talking, and most recently I saw a video of Floyd Reefer with a journalist who, to the best of my knowledge, is a Democratic Labour Party sympathizer who is an aspirant herself.
Lashana Griffith.
Yes, yeah. Who is interviewing Floyd Reefer. So it's like, you don't present Floyd Reefer, you don't put him out to the test and put him to an independent representative of the Barbadian media and say, have a conversation, let this person ask you some pressing issues.
What does that say to you about how the party feels about him and how confident they are in him?
It says to me that what Hartley has been saying to you, which is that they didn't feel like they knew what the conversation was that they wanted to have. Let me start with that, going into this campaign. They knew what the conversation was that they were willing to have with the public, and this gets back to the comforts point that I was making earlier. They knew what the conversation was that they wanted to have. I don't really think it's a confidence thing in Floyd Reefer per se. I just think it's a matter of them now trying to figure out how they're going to package themselves. And they say, okay, Floyd, this is what we're going to do. Go out and do this. And then you now see towards the end of the campaign him coming into his own a little bit more. But the point, Shane, that I'm trying to make is that the previous leadership of the Democratic Labour Party was known for having these conversations with themselves, with himself. So the country is clearing out over potholes, and you come out and say that potholes are minor inconveniences. You think you can define that conversation for the public, and you're free to say to the public what you should be concerned about, what you shouldn't be concerned about, and what you shouldn't prioritize. Current leadership of the Democratic Labour Party is not quite like that, but however, they do seek to have these conversations in corners and say, yes, we will lash out at the Barbados Labour Party and attack them on this issue, but we're going to have our conversation over here in this corner, and we think that we're important, so you should come and listen to us, and we have a point, so you should think that we have a point too. And obviously now you're seeing that not being carried over into the voting public. So I do think that if the Democratic Labour Party carries on in this vein, that we see where things are headed. Okay,
Peter, I know you're back and you're eager to weigh in on the latest vote count from St. George North.
I was crunching the numbers regarding the second set of polling divisions, and here also the story is the same. The voter turnout is down in similar fashion. The level of support for both political parties is of similar fashion. So we're looking at Toni Moore in now with around 60-65% support in both of them. There was no difference in terms of her performance, and the Democratic Labour Party performance used to border around the 30%, with the other parties taking up something, additional to the remainder of them. So nothing new. Low voter turnout continues. The voter turnout is down, and the support in those two constituencies, for the two parties, hasn't varied significantly. The conversation, I think, which is more important really, is what does this tell us about where the Democratic Labour Party is? And I ask the producer if he can help me again, because I'm hearing myself and it's a bit distracting. Generally speaking, I think that we need to look at the DLP and ask ourselves where the DLP is going in this conversation. When we had previous chats this election, this by-election, I had made a suggestion that it was perhaps not in the Democratic Labour Party's interest to test the election in the first place. And of course, people said, but you can't knock if you're a serious political party. I am not convinced that tonight's performance Democratic Labour Party, because it appears as though the Labour Party is no better off than it was when it lost all 30. So against that background, I really wonder whether it was wise for them to cut the first place. As distinct from saying, you know what, we never have before. Our priority needs to be doing two things. The Democratic Labour Party needs to listen to the people of Barbados, and the Democratic Labour Party needs to understand itself and essentially present an alternative for the people of philosophy for the people of Barbados. It's ironic, exactly what Robin said he wanted to do when he contested against Verdi Pisa. Exactly what Prime Minister Motley did when the Barbados Labour Party was in the wilderness in 2013. They listened, they call it rubbing shoulders, and they presented an alternative philosophy, which was their covenant. I think that whether the DLP changes the language, it needs to do something similar, because clearly it's not having the conversation that the people of Barbados want. And essentially now what they've done is they've blocked themselves into a situation where we are at halfway mark, and we are saying we're looking at a DLP that has not recovered and not doing any better under Verdi de Pisa than it did under Friend Stewart. Okay? Now Verdi de Pisa said that she was expecting this election. She said that she was coming. She said expecting others. She said she was ready. She said that in her opinion, the selection of Toni Moore was the candidate they were least concerned about, and that they were confident that they would have won. So they have defined it, and they have also said a referendum on the performance of the government, and that it is a reflection of the fact that people are dissatisfied. Now, we have the answers to all of that tonight, and I think that really going forward, we have to ask some questions. The question of the third party and the necessary consolidation that Harley was talking about just now, I think is absolutely important. If the DLP is to have a resurgence, you cannot continue to have 5 and 6 meandering parties going on. And their conversation on trade unionism and trying to combine forces of all of the political parties, when in truth and in fact, the system of all of these small parties is really only damaging the Democratic Labour Party. And that's something that has to be clear. So what is the logic of continuing to pursue a situation in which you have 5 and 6 small parties, a Democratic Labour Party, and they're all fighting for the same turf, as opposed to trying to see if we can get some level of consolidation among those parties, and so we can go from there. And then so against that background, we to feel that it was perhaps not a good idea for the DLP to contend. I don't know that they have embarrassed themselves, but I don't know that they have helped themselves either. Reefer can say, you know what, I better object to his performance, supposed to be an economist. Well, not supposed, he was an economist, probably more of a academic elite than Floyd Reefer is. Floyd Reefer can say, you know, I did better than him. So he can take that away in terms of his own thing. But I am convinced that the Democratic Labour Party as a party takes things away from this campaign that one can say is good. And I'm anxious to hear how Verdi de Pisa will make this going forward. So that's me for now.
Hartley, you want to jump in?
Yes, I'm agreeing 100% with Peter on this issue, because a lot has to do with 2 years hence. Where do you go from here? And normally, as a political strategist myself, this is the point at which you begin to ready your party, because the Prime Minister reserves the right, anytime going forward to call an election. And this result, and it is not the result that is worrisome or is particularly indicative of where we're at. It's the fact that the party contested the election on the basis that it was going to win. It would have been a declaration that it is back, that it is what have you. That, I think, is the unfortunate situation, because having gone out and having rallied your troops, it is very difficult now to regroup and to mobilize your people, because you made it about winning or losing as opposed to being a midterm scenario, and also about relaunching. The other strategic error here is that you have to acknowledge the strengths and weaknesses of individuals. You had the new political leader, the re-elected political leader of the Democratic Labour Party, winning an election on the basis that her opponent was not fit for purpose. And 3 days later, she names that opponent to head up a campaign behind which she was throwing her full support and her entire leadership, the leadership of the party, and the image and the strength of the party. Those are some scenarios and some developments that are very, very strange. They to me suggest basically the driver is not in control of this vehicle, because to have selected your opponent for leadership as the head of the campaign, to put your future in the hands of your opponent who just spent weeks undermining your leadership, I just found it to be a very strange strategy. And I'm very concerned tonight from that point of view, because I believe that the message this sends is that persons who are concerned in terms of where we go from here will be rethinking seriously. Even prospective candidates for the Democratic Labour Party will be thinking twice about this. We are fortunate as a country that the ruling Barbados Labour Party has not abused in any significant way the majority that it has. There are other countries where there would have been flagrant abuses. That is not the situation in this case. So we have stability. We've been able to manage the pandemic that is impacting us, and we have a country on an even keel economically. You have Standards and Poor's suggesting that we're okay and what have you. But that does not take away from the fact that we should still be able at this stage to have a second viable political party in the country. And that is what I think this by-election is telling us, that we are where we were on May 25th.
You can probably see a projection for victory for the Toni Moore of the Barbados Labour Party. What is this saying to you, to her opponents?
It's saying a lot of very interesting things. I want to comment on the Democratic Labour Party first, and I want to comment on the PDP, who we've had a very, very little conversation about, and then I will comment on Toni Moore, about her opponents. Hartley's a consultant, he's a strategist. Peter is a consultant, I am a consultant, and what we are saying here collectively tonight, the viewers and the viewing public will have to ask themselves, how is the output of the Democratic Labour Party, the outward appearances of the Labour Party, so very distinct from what you have a group of political consultants here saying on television, on national television? Who is advising them, and how are they being advised? How are they seeming to come so far from the mark, and they've now had 2 years to consider things and come out refreshed, put out something different to the public, and to really be the ones, apart from, instead of being in the hot seat like the ruling party is, the ones who can sit back and say, okay, this is how we're going to come at things, this is how we're being best advised, and show the public that they really have something to offer in terms of now being a credible force again. The PDP is of interest to me because the PDP is still the substantive opposition, so one still would have wanted to see how they would have performed in this by-election. My expectations for them weren't high, but at the same time, we still have to have a conversation about their leadership. Their leadership ran a campaign, from what I could see, that appealed to the people's, or attempted to appeal to people's sense of democracy. So again, as I referred to earlier, Shane, you have this situation where the Barbados Labour Party is essentially defining the conversation, or they feel as though the Barbados Labour Party and their dominance is defining the conversation that they can have with the public. So they're trying to carve out a space and define themselves within that context now and say they're the big bad wolves, they're the big bad monsters, convince people that, you know, they're the establishment and that you need something different. You need to give other people a chance. You need to make democracy strong, so vote for us. And that has not worked. We have Joseph Adley, who pulled away from the Barbados Labour Party and for all intents and purposes has been making efforts to be the ones to oppose and to point things out to the public and to expose and do all of these things. But we don't seem to have that translating thus far into any significant support for his party. And what will we indeed see from his party within the next 2 years when we do have the general election here in Barbados? So their performance is also, their continued performance is also interesting.
Okay, remember we have Peter Wickham joining us virtually. And Peter, I know you want to get involved in this discussion as well.
Yeah, I mean, Corey mentioned the just now, and I think that the PDP is of keen interest in this campaign election largely because it's their first outing the PD role of opposition in Barbados. It was not elected to that role, but it assumed that role. And the PDP's narrative has been basically that it is a legitimate alternative to the Barbados Labour Party. Things about the PDP disturb me, and one of them is that the PDP, 2 senators, and as it stands, there's really only that has been part of the campaign and so on. You have to ask about the resources. And then the other thing is that one who is not a senator, and they send that person to run in George North in the shape of Mr. Waldron, I believe is the person that they have sent. And as it stands, Mr. Waldron is underperforming Solutions Barbados. So the concept of legitimacy now in relation to the PDP, I think when we go forward, defend the extent to which you are considering yourself an alternative to the Democratic Labour Party, the Labour Party, you're considering yourself a legitimate opposition, and you cannot even get a level of support that is the second highest in terms of votes counted. I mean, this doesn't surprise me, but I'm just saying that if we look at the narrative for what it is, if we look at the PDP argument that it is now the alternative to the Barbados Labour Party, we have to ask ourselves, can you be an alternative? You can't even get, you haven't crossed the 100 barrier in a situation where, we are half the votes counted and we have half the votes counted, and the situation is over 1,000 votes for Toni Moore, and the solution and PDP is around 36. So it's that part is interesting to me, the role of PDP, and I endorse a lot of the other comments we've been hearing of the ringing endorsement of the Barbados Labour Party, and continuing to raise about the path that the Democratic Labour Party is walking and what doing going forward.
Hartley, as a strategist, we here at the CBC, we covered extensively as much as all the campaigning as we could. One of the things that stood out was the way the Barbados Labour Party dealt with gender. We heard very early when a lot of the criticism against Toni Moore was about her being the General Secretary, and the Prime Minister made it, she carved this story in a way when she said, me, a woman, can't pick another woman in the union to run for politics. And then in Charles Road Bridge, there was a full female lineup for the Barbados Labour Party. Strategy-wise, are some of the other parties, in particular the Democratic Labour Party, missing where politics in the world has evolved socially in terms of gender roles?
Yeah, I felt it was very interesting that the discussion with respect to Toni Moore as a candidate, a General Secretary of the Union, entering the politics, the electoral politics, and the position that would have been taken by the Democratic Labour Party, having advanced Yvonne Walks as a candidate, having advanced Undine Whittaker as a candidate, to me, and at that point, that is where the narrative became a bit fuzzy. Because if you look at the electoral list of St. George North, there's a significant higher number of women, of females, than males in St. George North. You also have the current makeup of the parliament with a significant number of women. You're not going to stop it. The world has spoken on it. Females, women, whatever gender issues, women have arrived. You have to be able to acknowledge that they are going to come into their own, and you have to make provision for them. And those are the sorts of declarations that are going to come back to haunt the Democratic Labour Party. Because you have, and what is interesting is that the persons who attack women most from the Democratic Labour Party platforms are women. It's an amazing scenario. It was tried at Bank Hall, behind the stadium at the start of the 2018 campaign, continued in Bay Street, and amazingly, it was continued in this by-election. And I'm saying, at what point are you going to get the message that that is not working? that you are really out of touch and out of sync with the discussion. And rather than you seek to utilize, and I must tell you, I followed several of the Democratic Labour Party meetings, and they have some pretty bright, attractive young women coming up. But they don't seem to believe in them, because you still had to go for Bobby Morris. You still had to go for Anthony Wood. To do what? It would have been better had you showcased the same way that the Barbados Labour Party showcased their women. You could have showcased yours. But to try in 2020 to dumb down the role and the involvement of women at the national level, I think that really again spoke to the confusion in terms of purpose, in terms of targeting, in terms of exactly who you are and what you stand for. And I believe that, again, this is a situation where I think that the party has to seriously stop and take stock. Now, just quickly on the issue of the PDP, strategically, and I can't help but speak as a strategist, I do not know why the PDP would have entered a candidate in this race. You cannot win it. If you, it would have been better if they had stood out of this and give tacit support to the Democratic Labour Party behind the scenes and kept its powder dry. It is better for me to be curious about your strength than to see your weaknesses. And what we have seen here is that the PDP now finds itself on a level with the other fledgling parties, not to be taken seriously as a potential alternative. And that, I think, is very unfortunate, because I don't know, the PDP has to seriously think tonight where it goes from there. It was never elected as an opposition party, but the first opportunity that the electorate got, it has passed judgment.
So was it about winning for the PDP or establishing itself to run an election?
It would have, if you listen to them, it was about seeking to make its presence felt. It was about establishing that we are a force to be reckoned with. In a 6 weeks campaign, I didn't think that was possible. I didn't think that was a good idea to attempt that. It would have been better had you waited and come to this country in 2 years' time with a slate of candidates, 30 candidates, offering yourself as an alternative. The Democratic Labour Party would have lost this by-election, and now you would have assumed and begun to cannibalize on the Democratic Labour Party, pull away a few of their candidates, pull away a few from Solution, pull away a few from UPP, and become the alternative party. But to have now gone and enmeshed yourself in at that level, where, as Peter correctly said, you barely, you're at 36 votes when Toni Moore is at 1,400. You're going to find it very difficult to recover from this and to be taken seriously.
Okay, Corey, I want to touch a bit on something Hartley said about the young women, especially young people, but the young women in particular in the Democratic Labour Party. But we've been seeing young females featuring heavily in the two major parties. I know Dawn Marie Lane and Terry Ann Reid of the Democratic Labour Party, and then Roshana Trim of the Barbados Labour Party. What is that saying to you, this young talent coming through?
On the Democratic Labour Party?
Both sides.
All right, well, let's deal with Democratic Labour Party. I think you'll be hard-pressed, Shane, or viewers looking at the Democratic Labour Party. You know that they have bright young people. I know several bright young people that are associated with the party, but when do you see them push forward in any meaningful way? Do they really take care of their own? Do they really put them in positions where they're able to get out there and actually do things that are tangible, as opposed to saying, hey, we have an election campaign, we want you to come and represent us on the platform, and then when the election passes, you don't really see these people in any meaningful way. So you have young women in the party. I don't have any difficulty believing that. They're drawn to the ideals of the party. They may now sense a void in the party where, there are opportunities that may be exploited because the party is in kind of a rebuilding phase. That's not a difficult thing for me to believe. Peter can tell you that when it comes to the voting public, in not just Barbados, but throughout the Caribbean and likely the world, a woman's vote is practically worth twice that of a man, because women vote more reliably. Sorry, male viewers. It just is fact. Women vote more reliably than men do. So I thought it was interesting for this Democratic Labour Party campaign that you had Floyd Reefer trying to appeal as a candidate to people's sympathies, because I found that Toni Moore did that too. And you heard her speaking tonight about how she set this mission for herself to get out and press flesh and visit all the households in the constituency, and she got about 80%. So she filled that void as well. And I will tell you, Shane, that as a female candidate, she would successfully convince voters that she is the one, quote unquote, who cares much more easily than a male candidate ever would. Simply because women are known to have these qualities of caring, of being able to empathize and sympathize and identify with the issues that people are going through. Whereas the party was being attacked. She is a woman, she represents this party, so she cannot be good because she is coming with this party. So I think that the position of the young people in the Democratic Labour Party, I really, if they're serious about their young people, I would really like to see it coming through more clearly beyond tonight. I think, like Hartley has been saying, they're going to have to come with something that really captures the mind, not just of their old support, but of people in Barbados who might not even be interested in voting right now. They have to bring something fresh that captures the minds of voters. And on the Barbados Labour Party side, you then see a government that was formed that had several of its young, vibrant candidates pushed into ministries, pushed into positions of importance. You have the economy being the issue of greatest importance, economic issues being the issues of greatest importance leading into the campaign in 2018, and you have several of the members on the forefront of that, the young Barbados Labour Party candidates who became MPs. You have them pushed into the forefront of the government. So the Democratic Labour Party is going to have to, quote unquote, put his money where his mouth is, so to speak, and show that the young people in the party that they have something further for them beyond just platform appearances. And I think that it is then that they will really, it's more than just social media game. It is then that they will really begin to convince people that, hey, we have something different to offer as opposed to more of the same.
Okay, Hartley, we've had 4 of 9 polling divisions coming back. You're a hometown boy. What can we expect? Some of the areas that these remaining divisions are GG1 and 2, 3, GH1 and 2.
Yeah. Now from here you go to, as I said, east of the hill, which is the Ruins area, by the Talma Vaughan home, Thorpe's Cottage, Tate Hill, Walkers, those areas. That is Barbados Labour Party country. Even in the days of Cyril Walker. So from here it is going to get a little messy, even more messy for the Democratic Labour Party. And then you then go from there up to Newberry, which was the homeland of Glenn Clark. We'll have to wait and see what impact Toni Moore has on Newberry, on the Newberry's St. Jude's area, such as that. And then you're going across then into Cottage and right up to Groves and Retreat and St. Jude's and what have you. And then you go across to the St. John aspect of it, which is the Ashbury, Golden Ridge side. All of these are areas that the Barbados Labour Party are likely to do pretty well. So in terms of communities, you are now getting into what one can refer to as the briar patch of the incumbent party, which is not a good sign for that. And that is why, again, I think from a strategic point of view, that we should have been, at this point, putting the horse race behind us, and now the government should have tonight to be contending with 3 or 4 issues that emerge in the campaign that has it more or less having to go back to rethink and to change and to alter and to amend and adjust. What you now have is triumphalism. What you now have is a situation where the government has been given a pass without hindrance, and I think strategically the opposition forces will have now to seriously sit and rethink their strategies going forward, because for the next hour or so it is not going to be good news for the opposition parties, because if any major impact was to be made, it should have been made in the GF1 and GF2 boxes. When you get now into the GGs, that GG1, GG2, GG3, that is trouble. And I can only hope that somehow that at this juncture persons will begin to sit up and say, okay, let us take stock, let us have a look and see what's going on.
Okay, you said it's not going to get easier for the opposition parties. In 2018, the UPP was one of the more popular among the smaller parties. What do you think about them in this campaign and their candidate, Ambrose Grosvenor?
Well, interestingly, we only knew that there was still a UPP when Grosvenor decided to run, because one was under the impression that the UPP had been absorbed into part of PDP, what have you. Clearly, I don't expect either of these parties to survive this by-election, the UPP or Solutions, primarily because it is not easy to be able to sustain this. It is not easy to be able to continue to contest elections, to move around, what have you. As someone has said, I think Greville Phillips is a very talented young man. I think he has a contribution to make. I'm surprised that one of the two existing parties has not sought to embrace him, to draw him closer. But certainly, as far as Grosvenor is concerned, I don't know, at this stage, the UPP, I think the UPP is dead as of tonight. I think Solutions is dead as of tonight. I think PDP will not be relevant after tonight. And I think the Democratic Labour Party has seriously to analyze where it is going from there. I think as far as the Barbados Labour Party is concerned, it cannot use this as an opportunity for gloating. It cannot use this, misinterpret the message that is being sent here. Certainly, COVID aside, and we make provision for COVID, but the numbers could have been better in terms of the turnout, in terms of the length of the campaign, in terms of the fact that its candidate would have done tremendous legwork in terms of interacting with the voters. A little higher turnout could have been better, because if the slight swing away from the incumbent, all things equal, I think that the incumbent party must still be very cognizant of the fact that it has to keep its promises. It has to follow up. Because, as I said, in the St. Michael Northwest situation, Clyde Maskell won the by-election. Yeah. But the general election was a different scenario. And I think that the Barbados Labour Party is on a pretty good wicket, but it has now to concentrate on delivering its promises. It has to concentrate now on maintaining its base and delivering on the issues that are of concern to the people. It has done a pretty good job internationally. It has salvaged and restored the name of Barbados. Barbados has a very excellent international rating, a very excellent regional rating, but now in the communities, we need now to begin to see positive impact at the constituency and the community levels. And that is going to be the challenge for the Barbados Labour Party going from here, to be able now to justify the confidence that the electorate is placing in them. Unfortunately, as I said, right now, they're the only game in town. So therefore, something has to give. The incumbent party has got to deliver, or someone has got to emerge. Something has got to emerge. And if it is not going to be the Democratic Labour Party, then you will. This is now the point at which an alternative option, an alternative force, should perhaps begin to emerge if we are to have a serious contest in 2 years' time.
Corey, your thoughts on Solutions and UPP and Alex Mitchell?
There's not much more that I can add, honestly. I'm looking to see what the remaining boxes would be, but I don't have much thought that it would be any different from the previous boxes for them. I mean, I think that it's hard from their perspective to have fought the campaign. I think that for a small party, the by-election that just went by in the campaign we have would be the equivalent of a national campaign. I think that would be a much bigger deal for them than it would have been for the Democratic Labour Party, in a way, because the Democratic Labour Party needed to have a strong showing. But I do think that in order to mount a campaign, it's much harder for a small party to attract the funds necessary to do so and all of that. So I believe a lot of effort went in. When I hear Greville Phillips saying that this would be his last because it's put his family through a lot, I know there's a lot behind that statement that he's making to the public. So to put that level of effort in, to make that level of sacrifice, and then the boxes are coming in for you with 4 votes, 2 votes, no votes, that's a hard thing. So I feel the pain, but The point is being made here tonight that it's not an easy thing to do, to make a significant impact, to make inroads with voters as a new force in a Caribbean country. So going forward, I think that for me the story of tonight outside of the Dems has been the PDP. I don't think that the PDP is fooling anybody. If they came out to settle and present themselves as a force via this by-election, I think that leading into this by-election, the history of it, the way in which it was the party was formed, the way in which its leader crossed the floor, I think that Barbadians saw right through what that was really about. They didn't see it as anything other than a thing of convenience, and now we're seeing it come out here in these numbers.
Okay, Shane, we're still waiting for the returning officer to come back with the next batch of results. We understand that it is right around the corner.
Yes, that will be coming your way shortly. Of course, we're looking at polling divisions GG1 through 3 and GH1 and GH2. So we'll await the votes from that. But so far, Toni Moore is leading the charge with close to 1,500 votes, and Floyd Reefer well behind with just over 800. More counting to come from the counting center at the St. George Secondary School, and we'll have it all for you right here on our broadcast.
My friends, my fans, and my family, that I will be a thankful to everybody. Some of them laugh and say, look, don't mind me. Others come God every year, but a bad lucky. But this year, this ugly man, plan to mash up the whole land. I ain't coming to make no strife. I'm licking up the place 1985. Look, every time the MC call my name, I just hear you shouting this refrain. All you say is self-praising and praise, but I hear when your voices in my ears. We want more, right now we want more. Every time I come with a melody, I can hear you calling repeatedly. We want more, right now we want more. If I sing fast or sing slow, just hear you shouting this encore. We want more, right now we want more. All I hear is more, give me more, right now, give me more. We want more, right now we want more, give me more, right now, give me more. We want more, right now we want more. All right. We want more, right now we want more. We want more, right now we want more. In myself, I got all confidence that I put a spell on the audience. I got the class, the most them can surpass. And for years to come, I wanted to last. When you see me on the stage, others have you in a rage. And before I could sing me song, all you just got the whole place break down. Every time the MC call my name, I can hear you shouting this refrain. We want more, right now we want more. All you say is self-praising and praise, but I hear when your voices in the ears. We want more, right now we want more. Look, I'm mash up the place with T&Ds and the whole
We're back with you on Decision St. George North, almost halfway in the counting, and at first we were planning that this would go to about 10:30, but we're in for the long haul tonight, so we're glad that you can stay with us as we bring you the results from the counting center there in St. George at St. George Secondary School. There we have Lisa Broom and Ryan Broom. They're awaiting the returning officers to bring back the next set of results. We're expecting something coming from GG1, GG2, and GG3. Those are up next with a number of boxes, a number of ballots to be counted there. And as you heard in our discussion, this should be good for the Barbados Labour Party and their candidate, Toni Moore, who is already leading by by my calculation, over 600 votes. So back to the discussion as our moderator, Shane Jones, he is speaking to Hartley Henry.
Yes, thanks, Shane. So, Hartley, one of the hot button topics of the entire campaign was the debates. Now that we're seeing the way this is going, what would your advice have been to Floyd Reefer pertaining to the debates?
I personally believe that Floyd should have participated in the debate. I don't think that he would have had enough time to sell himself. As I said, his name recognition, the Reefer name was well known. He would have been coming in as the underdog, but he just needed to be himself. The issues that were going to be discussed, had he kept that to St. George North, agriculture could be an international issue and agriculture could be a parochial issue. He needed to stay within his comfort zone, and he would have been able to touch voters in a way that he probably did not or could not have in the time frame to physically interact. When you're talking about 9,400 voters, that's a lot of voters. And to pass up an opportunity to come into their living rooms for 2 hours of prime time, where you could have looked them in the eye and speak to them, interacted with them, I felt that that was an unfortunate error. I think he was misadvised on that one, because it would not have turned out. Persons were not looking for an intellectual. Persons were not looking for a Martin Luther King. Persons were looking for soul. For someone who cares. And I felt that Floyd, in his own way, could have come, sat down, and addressed the issues and let people know who he is, what he stood for, what he wanted to achieve. He would have reached a far greater audience than the little bus scrawls and shop lines and little street corner rum shop stuff that we were talking about. That would never have worked in the 6-week campaign. And so I think from a debate point of view, unfortunately, in the end, with quote unquote his boycott and that of the two of the other parties, we still had an interesting discussion to some extent as a country. We saw Greville Phillips did a pretty good account of himself. Toni Moore lived up to our expectation. So we saw that, and I think that going forward, certainly in Barbados, is the debate concept is something I would like to see. I would like to see situations where we can have leaders having to sit down and grapple and deal with issues, because the state of tourism. We have a situation where you had an entire 6-week by-election campaign, and the opposition parties never spoke to wither tourism. Amazing. When you could have had the government under some pressure with respect to how are you going to get us going? How are you going to get our workers back? Because the government can only sustain the 80% wage assistance for so long. And so the reality is that you're at a stage now where we need to have these conversations, and it would be good if we can utilize our television and such forum to have constructive discussions on how we go forward as a nation. And I think that the parties made an error in my mind in opting out of that scenario.
Corey, so we just heard Hartley say that he believes that the debates should be part of the Barbadian elections landscape going forward. What I want to ask is, what is expected of our politicians changing? When you consider the comments made by Delel Bradshaw, and only a few years ago, someone like David Estwick was one of the most popular platform speakers in Barbados, and those comments were not very dissimilar. Are the expectations of the Barbadian politician changing?
I think so. I also think, in order to answer your question, Shane, what I would say is that in 2018, I think we saw a campaign come out of the Barbados Labour Party, the likes of which we had never seen in Barbados before. I think they ran an above-board campaign. I think that they appealed to the intellects of Barbadians in a way that, the complaint, you move around the Caribbean like I do, and you're assessing people qualitatively in terms of the type of research that you're doing, and you hear complaints that frequently and consistently that the politics have become all about mudslinging. And the Barbados Labour Party campaign did not descend into that. In 2018, you had a situation where they spoke consistently to the issues that people wanted to hear.
Okay, we got to cut you there, Corey. We're going to have some more results right now.
So we now continue. Polling district G1, divided into 2 boxes. GG1, A to H, Mitchell, Rosner 4, Mitchell 0, Moore 125, Phillips 2, Reefer 45, Waldron 2, 3 spoiled. GG1, I to Z, Grosvenor 6, Mitchell 0, Moore 104, Phillips 4, Reefer 39, Waldron 0, spoiled 0. Total for the polling district GG1, Grosvenor 10, Mitchell 0, Moore 229, Phillips 6, Reefer 84, Waldron 2, spoiled 3, bringing the total for all polling districts so far up to GG1, Grosvenor 40, Mitchell 5, Moore 1,720, Phillips 55, Reefer 922, Waldron 28, spoiled 7. Polling district GG2 divided into 4 boxes. A to D, Grosvenor 1, Mitchell 0, Moore 118, Phillips 4, Reefer 42, Waldron 2, spoiled 0. GG2 E to H, Grosvenor 2, Mitchell 1, Moore 142, Phillips 8, Reefer 32, Waldron 4, spoiled 0. GG2 I to P, Grosvenor 4, Mitchell 0, Moore 124, Phillips 4, Reefer 43, Waldron 1, spoiled 0. GG2 Q to Z, Grosvenor 2, Mitchell 0, Moore 116, Phillips 1, Reefer 42, Waldron 1, spoiled 1. Total for the polling district GG2, Grosvenor 9, Mitchell 1, Moore 500, Phillips 17, Reefer 179, Waldron 8, spoiled 1. Total at the end of polling district, cumulative total at the end of polling district GG2, Grosvenor 49, Mitchell 6, Moore 2,220, Phillips 72, Reefer 1,081, Waldron 36, 8 spoiled.
Just
Polling.
you said 179, that seems to be 159.
159, I'm sorry, I apologize, 159 for Reefer in total for GG2. GG3, 2 boxes, polling district GG3, A to H, Grosvenor 7, Mitchell 0, Moore 176, Phillips 3, Reefer 48, Waldron 4, 1 spoiled. GG3 I to Z, Grosvenor 2, Mitchell 1, Moore 124, Phillips 7, Reefer 49, Waldron 6, spoiled 0. Total for the polling district GG3, Grosvenor 9, Mitchell 1, Moore 300, Phillips 10, Reefer 97, Waldron 10, spoiled 1. Total at the end of all boxes up to all PDs up to GG3, Grosvenor 58, Mitchell 7, Moore 2,520, Phillips 82, Reefer 1,178, Waldron 46 with 9 spoiled.
Well, there you have it, Shane and Shane. Ms. Moore has clearly extended her lead to more than 1,000 votes now. I'm told by the returning officer that the next time that he comes out, that should be the last set of boxes that we should get tonight. But as I said, you know, the 2 main front-running candidates, obviously Ms. Moore and Mr. Reefer, she has now extended her lead by more than 1,000 votes as we go into these last few boxes. Next time I come back to you, we would find out how those remaining boxes will go. Back to you, Shane and Shane.
Thanks so much, Ryan. Well, Corey, you were speaking when we went to the latest set of results, so I'll give you the first bite of this cherry.
I can't. My mind is completely gone off of whatever point I was making. I think it's a somber night. Hartley was here figuratively killing off some parties earlier in his commentary, but it's a somber night indeed. I do look at those parties and I have to echo what Peter was saying earlier, because in Barbados we have a lot of conversation around this idea that our democracy needs to be strong, that we should have alternative parties, and then people ultimately don't support them. They present themselves, or in this case, there are too many of themselves presented, and people don't know which one to pick from. They can't really discern one from the other, or they don't really look at them and see something credible that they think can represent them. So they do have to ask themselves, what's to be served to just to say that you're putting yourself out there? What was to say that what is being served by saying you are one of these political entities which is offering an alternative to the government, but nobody seems to want you, or you can't seem to attract support in large enough numbers on your own that is making it worth your while to do so? Are you just fighting elections for the sake of fighting elections? And then also, what's your identity between elections? What do people identify you as? As Hartley was saying, the UPP had this showing in the last election. They had a leader who was more nationally recognized than they have now. And since the leadership of the party changed, we've heard precious little come out of the party. I'm sure that the person leading the party is a capable leader in that sense, but in terms of politics, how much does he know? Is that really his sphere? So no, you're not really hearing about these parties in any significant way. When you do hear about them, they're talking about the government. You don't know what they stand for. And tonight has to be a somber night for some, and you have to wonder if you're going to see them beyond tonight. I did want to have a comment before you switch over to Hartley or to Peter about Grenville Phillips. I did make a point about him at the beginning of this campaign period, or the beginning of, at least since X Trail show started, that I thought it was brave of him to run in this election, because if he did and he lost, he's no announced that this would be his last, but if he did and he had numbers similar to the ones that he did in 2018, I don't think that he would have been able to get people behind him, because people will now look at you and say, you've now run twice, you've now achieved 3 to 4% of the overall vote in the constituency. How can I believe in you as a leader, far less someone who could even get near to winning a seat? So maybe he was looking at it the other way around. Maybe he was looking at it the opposite way from the way I was looking at it. Let me run again. The opportunity has been presented to me, so if I run this time, I will know for sure whether it's worth my while, and if not, I will bow out. So he staked all his claims. We understand. We've been talking tonight about parties staking their claims to winning this by-election. We understand why he would have wanted to win. He's now not just lost, but so far as I can tell, his showing has been even smaller than the 2018 election, which was small to start with. So that's an unfortunate night for him.
Hartley, it's going exactly the way you said it would in these divisions.
Yeah, and I don't want us to take away from the hard work of Toni Moore and the fact that she was a good candidate. In cricket, a good ball is a good ball. Yeah. And the reality is that Toni Moore, the Barbados Labour Party, is to be congratulated for being able to persuade Toni Moore to enter public life, not public life, but to enter electoral politics, elective politics. From the time she was announced, thinking persons knew that she would have been a major force to be reckoned with. And I don't think that we should take away from the fact that she hit the road running. She has worked hard. She was out there constantly. She never got herself involved in all of the mudslinging and all of the discussion about her legitimacy, what have you. She was focused on her job. So I say that to make the point that what the support she is getting, I believe that she worked hard for and she earned. Now, having said that, and we look at the scenario now that is unfolding, clearly with the GH1, GH2 boxes to come, those were boxes that the Democratic Labour Party fell off badly in 2018. Certainly in 2008 and 2013, they did pretty well in those boxes. But in the 2018 situation, they went from hundreds of votes to single digits, to double digits. One will be very interested to see, what happens there. But certainly, I think we've made the point that as far as the message here is concerned, clearly there's need for a mixture of policies, there's need for a mixture in terms of philosophy, there's need for leadership. We have to get to the point. The Democratic Labour Party needs to find a leader. And if it doesn't, it has to find someone of the stature or close to the stature of Mia Amor-Motley.
And I want to interject right there because people are watching and following online as well. And one of the comments I saw when you were talking about the leadership within the Democratic Labour Party earlier, and when you were making comparisons to some things that happened across the region, a couple of people said the name Guy Hewitt.
It is interesting. It is interesting that name has been mentioned, and I know Guy Hewitt quite well, and Guy Hewitt certainly would be a far superior candidate to any that I'm seeing on the scene right now. Certainly in the diaspora, but it is not for me to advise them as to personalities. They will have to do their own focus groups and what have you. But certainly Guy Hewitt would be someone that one would have to sit up and take and give serious thought to. But is the Democratic Labour Party at that stage where it is ready to take these to do that introspection? When you still have the likes persons like Irene Sandford Garner and Derek Alleyne and a few others still wanting to be relevant in this thing, I'm not sure that it would be worth these guys' while to come home unless they are going to be given a free hand to make the type of structural changes that are required. The other thing that we have to come to terms with is that Errol Walton Barrow is dead. David Thompson is dead. You cannot go forth with a political party. The Barbados Labour Party now today is about Mia Amor-Motley. The Barbados Labour Party 10 years ago was about Owen Seymour Arthur. The Barbados Labour Party 25 years ago was about Tom Adams. You cannot in 2020 be telling me about you're building a party on the vision of Errol Walton Barrow. Errol Walton Barrow made his contribution. He has gone on. He served his time. Philosophically, you can remain glued to that philosophy, but there has to be someone who is now going to come and take you across the sea. You need your own Moses. And this notion that you can just continue to echo and to repeat Errol Walton Barrow all the time, and that is going to create some magic wand, some abracadabra moment whereby you're going to trigger an entire country. It is not going to work. Give the country an option. Give the country policies that make sense, that are relevant, that have been thought out. You are at a situation now where we have a national pandemic. There has to be some type of national tourism resuscitation recovery plan. There's agriculture. We need to discuss the whole issue of food security. If this wave that is currently impacting Europe and North America continues, we are going to have a serious issue in this country of food security. So I'm saying you cannot now be, in 2020, be coming to this country on the basis of the Errol Barrow legacy, when the cornerstone of that legacy you moved away from being free tertiary education. So I'm saying now that this is an opportunity not to be defensive. This is an opportunity for opposition forces to sit and seriously analyze where they are, look around and see how do we reinvent ourselves. Peter mentioned earlier the Covenant of Hope that the Barbados Labour Party did back in 2016. That is the type of a creative, imaginative thinking that is required, where persons can come and sit and say, I like what I'm seeing here. I like where the party is going. Mia Motley has been able to create a Barbados Labour Party in her image. You need now a Democratic Labour Party that can rally around someone, something, some philosophy, some program. Does it support Barbados going to republic? Does it support, where does it stand with respect to the whole question of the spliff and the decriminalization of marijuana? These are issues that people want to talk about. And this notion that you can just come up here and you can make a campaign, you have a national platform and you're telling me about pit toilets in a constituency. Well, there are pit toilets all across Barbados. A problem that is perennial, has no right to be in 2020, but that is not going to get you, that's not going to get you back into government. The street lights are not going to get you back into government. You have to be able now to come with an imaginative program for 2025, 2030. And that is what is sadly lacking in this situation. And as I said, we are fortunate as a country that the current incumbent government has not abused its mandate and has been able and has continued with its consultation and with its interaction and what have you to be relatively responsible. But we could have had problems if you didn't have that type of measured leadership that you currently have in Barbados. And I just think that tonight is a defining moment, because this is a clear trajectory as to where we're headed in 2 years. This result will mirror what will come in 2 years if there is not some fundamental change on the side of those who wish to oppose the government.
Corey, I saw you nodding over there. Verla de Pisa was returned just recently, weeks ago, a couple months ago, as the president of the Democratic Labour Party. Do you believe the Democratic Labour Party needs a new talisman?
I definitely agree. There's evidence. I mean, they've had a test. They've been given their test. In a way, we will see in the long run if the test that they've been given tonight ends up being the test that they needed. Because in politics, you know, they say a day is a long time in politics. There are a lot of developments that can come in the future that you didn't see coming. There are sometimes things that appear good for a party that turn out to be bad for a party. I think that if the Democratic Labour Party had lost in 2013, it would have served them far better than the fact that they won. Because that, I think, set them back by years, even though it appeared to be a good thing at the time. By that same token, one would hope, because we don't know what will happen, I certainly don't, that tonight, having been presented with this test, that it can bring positive things for a Democratic Labour Party leading forward. It is a loss. It appears to be a sound beating. It appears not to be even, apart from the fact that they state their claims to winning, it appears not to be even the type of loss that they would have wanted to see, so to speak. They have not been able to reach the numbers that they reached back in 2013. So they're still occupying that space where they're receiving some level of punishment from the electorate. And if that is the case, to your question, it means then that their leader has now been there for 2 years, 2018 to 2020, 2 years and a bit, 2.5 years. Mm-hmm. So it says something. You as a member of the party, you as a prospective candidate, you as a political hopeful within that party or on the fringes of that party, can't now look at that leader and say it can be business as usual going forward. Something obviously has to change. Otherwise, you're staring down another 30-0, and a 30-0, which I might add, that was ascribed to the previous leader. This would now be this would be her own. She would have to own that. You can't blame that now on a past leader, because this would now be her 30-0 that she would have to own as part of her own political career and history. So they have to change something, and to use your word talisman, they do seem to need one, and I don't think that she is it. Verla de Pisa is an attorney. She seems to have a sound intellect. Whether she's a leader doesn't seem that way, but she certainly is an anti-Mia. She is an anti-Verla.
Can the DLP go backwards into anyone that has run? We've heard names coming up like Stephen Lashley. Can they go backwards?
Any of those names that you would have heard would be caretakers at best, and they would be carrying the party backwards at worst. So I don't think that they can go backwards. They have to do something imaginative. They have to do something more imaginative than they have thus far. And the reason why I said earlier in the program that I'm not sure they've reached the 21st century is what Hartley was saying. You can't be in the 21st century talking about Errol Barrow, because there are voters that were not alive when he died. Many voters that were not alive when he died. So you were trying to build on this man's legacy, and it's not relevant to people. And you yourself, let's talk a little bit about the party's brand. What is the Democratic Labour Party's brand? Know that it's not Errol Barrow, because they themselves killed off many of the policies for which he was known during their 10-year period of governance. So what is their brand going forward? Who is the person that people are going to identify with that? They don't have any of that thus far. So coming out of 2018, the message they're sending to me is that we had a loss, and we are going to come back. Two-party politics rule in Barbados, so sooner or later we'll be back. And it's not that at all. They need to demonstrate to the public that they're in the 21st century, that they can operate on the level of a quote-unquote anti-Mia, That is what they need to demonstrate to the public, and they need to present a strong brand to the public, which I do not think they've done yet. I don't think the public knows what the Democratic Labour Party's brand is.
Okay. And of course, when you say anti-May, you're speaking about the way the public views the Prime Minister in that kind of friendly term and the way they
Shane, when the Barbados Labour Party trotted out that term, I think first in the 2018 election campaign, I didn't think it was going anywhere. I work in politics, so I tend to be probably more cynical than the average person because, you know, you kind of see through things that are being done on market employees and so on. I didn't think that one was going anywhere because the Mia Motley that we once knew, when she was much newer to leadership, was known as a much more bulldogish politician, much more aggressive in terms of her presentation style. So when they came with this anti-Mia, which appears to Mia Cures, I didn't think that was going anywhere. But it captured the public imagination because everybody around the place now refers to her as anti-Mia. That's gone beyond. So that has entered into, and that's now part of the party's brand, as Hartley was saying. And that has captured people's views, the way they see her, the way they see the party, they identify the party with her. The Democratic Labour Party does not have any of that. And they will now need to establish it, and they will now need to reach that level and come up here from where they are.
Hartley, you mentioned one of the strategies for the Democratic Labour Party was to speak about pit toilets and the bushing and the street lights, and you're saying that was totally rejected. What does the voter in 2020, how does the voter in 2020 make up their mind now?
The voter in 2020 has CNN, ABC, NBC, Fox News in their living rooms. They are aware of what is happening externally. They are aware of what is happening regionally. They are aware of what is practical, what is doable. They are also concerned about their own futures, economic future, sustaining their livelihoods and what have you. You therefore cannot appeal to them by seeking to speak down to them. You cannot be boasting on the one hand that Barbados is 95% literate, and then you are coming and speaking down to people on the basis that this road has not been fixed for a little while and that the water is not coming up to the people who are not getting water. When persons understand that a significant percentage of our water is lost through a piping system that is over 100 years old, when persons understand that the lack of maintenance over the last 10 years would have brought about situations. The point I'm making is you have to first understand your electorate. And that is and this notion that social media, that a grouping of individuals can sit on Facebook and sit on their laptops and iPads all night and chat away among themselves, and that what you are hearing is reflective of the views of a population, is fundamentally flawed. That's, if you look at the result in the United States of America, that told you it. Because you're able to tell yourself, and because you're speaking to your supporters and your supporters are telling you something, that this obtains. That no longer. You have to be able to get out there and rub shoulders with people and stay in touch with them and be relevant to them. And that is why I'm saying the politics that has been introduced by the Mia Motley administration is politics that is going to be difficult to beat because they are in touch. For example, we saw a classic example 2 days ago with the quote-unquote the dump scenario at Lower State. Persons were saying, but the Prime Minister didn't need to run up there because Floyd Reefer raised the issue. It is not that Floyd Reefer raised the issue. It is that people needed answers. People needed a situation that is totally unacceptable.
I'm going to have to
explain.
Stop you now because I think we're getting very close to the end of our broadcast with the returning officer who'll be coming out right now. I think we're going to go over right now with Lisa Broom.
Well, the Electoral and Boundaries Commission are gathered behind their boss, and we will now get that final tally.
Continuing from GH1 polling district divided into 3 boxes, A to C, Grosvenor 3, Mitchell 1, Moore 124, Phillips 7, Reefer 33, Walron 8, spoiled 0. GH1, D to L, Grosvenor 2, Mitchell 0, Moore 96, Phillips 3, Reefer 28, Walron 7, spoiled 0. GH1, N to Z, Grosvenor 4, Mitchell 1, Moore 142, Phillips 1, Reefer 26, Walron 15, spoiled 1. Total for the polling district GH1, Grosvenor 9, Mitchell 2, Moore 362, Phillips 11, Reefer 87, Walron 30, spoiled 1. Total up to the end of GH1, Grosvenor 67, Mitchell 9, Moore 2,882, Phillips 93, Reefer 1,265, Walron 76, spoiled 10. Last polling district, GH2, divided into 2 boxes, A to G, Grosvenor 0, Mitchell 0, Moore 139, Phillips 0, Reefer 24, Walron 1, spoiled 1. GH2, H to Z, Grosvenor 3, Mitchell 1, Moore 133, Phillips 2, Reefer 38, Walron 3, spoiled 1. Total for the polling district GH2, Grosvenor 3, Mitchell 1, Moore 272, Phillips 2, Reefer 62, Walron 4, my apologies, spoiled 2. Total for the votes cast for the constituency of St. George North, Grosvenor 70, Mitchell 10. That's my part. Let me read that out again. The result of a poll held for the election of a member to serve in the House of Assembly for the constituency of St. George North is as follows. Mr. Grosvenor has received 70 votes. Mr. Mitchell has received 10 votes. Ms. Moore has received 3,154 votes. Mr. Phillips has received 95 votes. Mr. Reefer has received 1,327 votes. Mr. Walron has received 80 votes. There were 12 spoiled. The total number of votes polled for all candidates was 4,748. I therefore declare Ms. Toni Moore to be elected and to be duly chosen representative for the constituency of St. George North to serve in the House of Assembly of this island.
Thank you very much, Mr. Eswick. As you heard in the studio, there in the studio, you can hear the supporters of Ms. Moore. They're here sharing.
More integrity, more ability. Floyd cannot do that for we. We want more, plenty more. And Toni gon' give us for sure. So we voting for Toni, we voting for Toni, we voting for Toni. And the BLP, we want more, plenty more. And Toni gon' give us for sure. We want more, plenty more. And Toni gon' give us for sure. We want more quality, more integrity, more ability. Floyd cannot do that for we. We want more, plenty more. And Toni gon' give us for sure. So we voting for Toni, we voting for Toni, we voting for Toni. And the BLP, we voting for Toni, we voting for Toni, we voting for Toni. And the BLP, we want more, plenty more. And Toni gon' give us for sure. We want more, plenty more. And Toni gon' give us for sure. We want more quality, more integrity, more ability. Floyd cannot do that for we. Floyd cannot do that for me. Floyd cannot do that for me. We want more, plenty more. And Tony gon' give us for sure. So we voting for Tony, we voting for Tony, we voting for Tony. And the BLP, we voting for Tony, we voting for Tony, we voting for plenty more. And Tony gon' give us for sure. We want more.
From the National Council, the entire Barbados Labour Party family, for really supporting me as a candidate for this constituency, and of course the many supporters and canvassers. But above all, I want to thank the constituents of St. George North. The constituents of St. George North, I want to say a very special thank you tonight for allowing me this opportunity to serve. It is certainly humbling. At the start of this journey, I committed that I would want to, or I undertook, I should say, that I would want to hit every single house in St. George North, because I recognize it was not only important for people to know of me. Many haven't seen me on television in my capacity as General Secretary of the Barbados Workers Union, but it was important for the constituents of St. George North and important for me to get to know them as well. And I wish I could say today that I had achieved that objective. I wish I could say that I have fought a good fight and I have finished my course. But my course has only just begun. And one of the first things that I have to do is to keep faith with my commitment to the constituents of St. George North who would have voted for me, and those who would not have voted for me, who I was not able up until now to be able to visit them. That is my commitment, that door-to-door and that 100% objective will be met. Because for all constituents of St. George North, whomever you voted for, that's not important. I'm here to serve, and I'm going to be serving not only out the rest of this term, but here's where the journey begins for as long as God allows.
We're going to try to speak with the Prime Minister now, who we're going to ask to come forward and to say a couple of words.
To you, Madam Prime Minister. Well-deserved victory.
Thank you.
You've been analyzing things all evening. Maybe you would want to speak to that first and then offer your congratulations to Ms. Moore.
Yeah. Before I do that, I'd like to offer my congratulations to the people of St. George North. This has been a campaign without incident. This has been a campaign, election day, equally without incident. And I think that first and foremost, we as a people should be very happy and congratulate all Barbadians that we maintain that record of a strong, stable democracy. I'd also like to thank the campaign team of Tony, but you will forgive me if I am exceedingly happy tonight, and Glenn is standing here. The turnout was a little lower than we would have expected normally, but we had a pandemic, and at 49.8%, considering that in Jamaica, the entire poll for the entire general election was 37%, I think that we've done well in just shy of 50% turnout, because there are a lot of people who express to us their concerns about coming out to vote. Against that, the margin of victory, and let me share with you publicly now what I shared with Glenn and Tony at the outset of this race 7 weeks ago. I told Tony that if she got 65% of the vote, I would hug her, and she would have been done exceedingly well. Toni Moore tonight got almost 67.6% of the vote, exceeding my expectations. And if you saw me working numbers all night, it's because naturally I have to get context. And Glenn in 2018 was an outlier. We all know that. Glenn won 81% of the vote after almost 20 years of representation. Toni Moore tonight gets almost 67% of the vote, not almost, 67.6%, almost 68% of the vote with 7 weeks on the ground. And 7 weeks on the ground, she was able to do better than Glenn did in 2013 when he got 59% of the vote. She was able to do better than Glenn did in 2008 when he got 54.6% of the vote. This is a commanding and decisive victory for what I predict will be a brilliant career for the people of St. George North, with her representation continuing on the stellar work of Glenn Clark in this constituency. I said 7-8 weeks ago that I wanted to have this young lady become a member of the Barbados Labour Party and to run. And I made no bones about it. I said that we needed hands on board to help us lift the heavy weight that 2020 has literally brought upon us. We recognized a few months ago as well that we needed to do all that we could to strengthen the laboring classes, not just of Barbados, but of the Caribbean and of the world. And that in a very real sense, because of the excessively high unemployment that has been triggered globally as a result of COVID, we felt that we wanted somebody at the table whose first and sole responsibility is labor. There is a coincidence of interest because of the party's philosophy. That also was buttressed, in my view, by strong, hard work. I have seen very few people with a work ethic as Toni Moore. She worked morning, noon, and night every day for 7 weeks. And while she may not have reached every single house, I can tell you she has reached the majority of houses in this constituency. The margin of victory, therefore, is not simply because she is a General Secretary of the Barbados Workers' Union. It is my contention that the margin of victory is because of her absolutely high work ethic, which I can commend to the people of Barbados as an example for all of us to follow. I also want to comment on some other things. There is no doubt that COVID-19 is causing serious difficulties for a number of families in this country. And that is why this government has tried to reorient much of its programming to be able to keep people's head above the water, keep people's nostrils above the water. And the most important thing is for people to stay alive. I am satisfied that Toni and the people of St. George North will work together. I saw an amazing spirit on the ground today. This was not a case where people were harassing. This was a case where those who were going to vote and who had no fear of COVID were going out to vote to express themselves, first as a representation of faith in Toni, and I must say as a representation of faith in the government's work and satisfaction that while the government is not yet where we want to be, we are definitely on the trajectory of a better Barbados in 2020 than when we found it in 2018. And I'm thankful for the people of St. George North for sending that message to the people of Barbados and to the wider world. I do believe that the opposition parties will have to reflect on this result. Not be for me to offer advice to any opposition party, but I will also say that it is a sobering moment. And if I were in their position, I would literally have to hunker down and go back to basics, because what is being offered is not reflecting what the needs of the country are. And I think that the absence of serious conversation, the notion that you can harangue and make false allegations or continue with this. Look, in 2018, I ran a campaign where I tried to stick to the policies and tried to stick to what it is we wanted to do for people. In 2020, we did it again. Last night, I had cause to say that, you know how many things people have brought to me, and I put them in a box and put it one side. Because if I do nothing else as Prime Minister of this country, I want to get Barbadians to understand that we can do better. And we do better by not engaging in a lot of irrelevant talk that does no good for the people who constitute the working class, for the people who own businesses, for the people who are self-employed. I want us as a nation to do better. And doing better is not talking people's name on a platform or mudslinging. And I hope that the example of 2 strong elections where we have run campaigns that have stayed up there will be an example for those in the future. I do think that the government is not omnipotent, it's not omniscient. That's why we've had an approach of rubbing shoulders and consultation and collaboration, because at the end of the day, we have to bring the people of this nation with us. My abiding hope, as I said on the 2nd of January of this year, is we have it within us to become world class within 7 years. I didn't say 2 or 3 or 5 because I know that it takes time to break habit. And we're going to break the habit of mediocrity. We're going to break the habit of accepting less than we should. And if we can do it at every level of this society, then trust me, all of us will be standing tall 7 years from now as Toni Moore stands tall above me tonight. Thank you and God bless you all.
Thank you very much.
I want also to thank you, the media, because part and parcel of this has been also our engagement. But believe you me, I want us now to focus on the real issues that are needed to get Barbados and Barbadians safely. And I make this appeal for us to continue to work together, because it is only when we have these kinds of conversations that we can settle the pathway to prosperity, the pathway to progress. Thank you. And finally, come my star. There's no way tonight can end. There's no way tonight can end without a picture of these two. Because in Glebe, we have had one of the best representatives in Barbadian politics for the last 3 decades. And I have never seen a retired MP walk every single day, morning, noon, and night with the new candidate. And it is testimony to what happens when people work together. When we work together as a people, we can achieve everything. That's right. And I hope that Barbadians take that message from us tonight. I love you, my brother. Thank you. Thank you.
There you have it, Prime Minister Motley. We're going to ask Mr. Glenn Clark to share a few words with us on the victory of Miss Moore.
I just want to congratulate Toni. She's a fantastic candidate, fantastic member of Parliament. Thank you.
Short and sweet from Mr. Clark. The showers have started to come here in St. George now as the Barbados Labour Party steps behind us to more or less celebrate or begin to celebrate the win of Toni Moore in this constituency. Just over 3,000 votes she totaled to the next closest. Ryan is here now. He's going to step in helping. Okay, so Ryan has just passed over his notes to me. Toni Moore, 3,154. The next closest, Floyd Reefer of the Democratic Labour Party, 1,327. Granville Phillips, Solutions Barbados, 95. This looks like Ambrose Grosvenor from UPP, 70. Alex Mitchell from Bajan Free Party, 10. And Walron from PDP, 80. And in total, this looks like 4,748 votes that were cast. 12 of them were spoilt. And as we begin to wrap up here, as I said, there's not the huge crowd that you would normally expect, Ryan, at a counting station when there is an election. Yes, it was a by-election, but of course we're also in the middle of a raging pandemic. And the rain is coming down as well.
Very heavily, right as we were about to finish, actually. Very heavily.
Definitely. So as guys in the studio, we will wrap up from here at St. George Secondary School, where the counting got underway just after 8 o'clock, and the returning officer, Mr. Estwick, had estimated that we would probably finish around midnight, and he was pretty much bang on, almost 11:45. Yeah, so we're going to wrap up here. We want to thank our engineers, James Arthur and Ryan Kennedy, our cameraman, Chris Wood. This is Lisa Broom and Ryan Broom reporting from St. George School. Back to you in the studio.
Thank you so much, guys. Doing a fantastic job there. And we can tell you that Floyd Reefer was beaten by Toni Moore. He was the next closest by 1,827 votes. And the overall vote total was down last. In 2018, the overall votes cast were 5,912. Now we've got 4,748. It's down like 1,000 164. I can tell you, in terms of the Democratic Labour Party side, we've got some messages coming in from our team on the outside. It said that Floyd Reefer is currently privately speaking with persons at the constituency office. There hasn't been any interviews or speech from either him or the president, Verla de Pisa. As a matter of fact, the last message I'm seeing is that they asked the media to leave so they can speak privately before addressing them. So, gentlemen, let me start with you, Hartley. Resounding victory for the BLP's Toni Moore.
Yes. Again, as I said, it's not a surprise. I never thought it would have been any different. I thought that the campaign unfortunately took the course of the horse race in a scenario where you had a party with 81% of the popular vote. It was always very, very ill-advised to have attempted to overcome that in one fell swoop. I think it is unfortunate, again, we are seeing where the Democratic Labour Party has adopted this posture. You saw a trend developing since 8 o'clock, since the start of counting. From the 2 hours ago, it was clear what was happening, that you are not in a position at midnight to say thank you to those who voted for you, to those who supported you, to those who prayed for you, tells you everything you need to know. It is really, this is a very unfortunate situation we've reached in Barbados, and really someone has got to step forward and say enough is enough, because this is not who we are. And I think that it would be unfortunate for persons to allow a handful of persons to essentially hijack and destroy a political movement that was started way back when and which played a role in the future of this country. So again, it's not a surprising result. It's a result that was expected, but I think it is a night when we have many persons need to stop and take stock, analyze, and determine where we go from here.
In your final words, Corey?
Well, we have the Democratic Labour Party again not winning a single box. And it's a case where a comment about losing in the way that the Democratic Labour Party did tonight and also in 2018. When you lose in the way that they did, you don't just lose, but losing itself becomes part of your brand. So now you have people who are associating losing the voting public of Barbados with the Democratic Labour Party. They've not been able to. They've increased their vote share, but not in any significant way. There has been some swing against the Barbados Labour Party, but nothing of significance. The greatest story of the night, I guess one could say, was the low voter turnout and any role that may have played. And, you know, we will have our chance to analyze the numbers as the days go on. I did make the point this morning about Toni Moore that we were expecting a win for her, but she would not have wanted to scrape home. It would have been difficult for her to scrape home, coming from 81%, but she was at 68%. And the Prime Minister was making the point of her numbers versus Glenn Clark's numbers. But I will say that 68% that she got would also be some of Glenn Clark's support that she's benefiting from going into this election. And definitely she'll be benefiting from some of her Prime Minister, Mia Mottley's support. So good showing for her. No surprises. Nothing of any significance. Sad night for Floyd Reefer and the smaller parties. We will see what impacts this will have on our political landscape going forward, but this is it for St. George North and its by-election.
Okay, and Peter Wickham, your final words.
Yeah. I mean, the outcome was, as the other analyst said, it was as expected. The support that Toni Moore received would have been 68%, 80% that Cecil received, but I think that all things considered quite well. It is better than what the LP did, the party did their 2 elections, and I think that's a significant mark that we had. It was better than it was certainly better than 2008. So also there, she goes in having done very well. The story with this Labour Party was to some extent predictable, and I would say it is markable. The Labour Party is ill, or if the Barbados Labour Party achieved that level of resilience across the island, and they still come up with him looking pretty good, pretty so that there is any significant message in that at the end of the night. Well, one could argue that Floyd Reefer as an individual has done well he's performed better in it. He has increased his support. So while at the national level, the LP has some sitting the Floyd Reefer eligible candidate, a first timer, I was someone who was held up to some level of ridicule. To some, he did better than Jet Ince, who they said was an economist. So I think that he can be really about that. The alternative party, cumulatively, they all did worse. They had a negative swing in them, a small party, suggesting that the DLP has absorbed some of their energy to some extent. But certainly the song for it absorbs it. But the overall ratio with the Democratic Labour Party is, I'm seeing it now, 28%. They're still not on the 40% they needed to be. They're not even at 30%. And I think that is a issue that they will need to have as a political organization. So all in all, I think today we've seen more or less what we expected, but there's some importance that we will begin to analyze from tomorrow. Let me just say congratulations to the representative Toni Moore for, one could say, continuing the proud tradition of General Secretary of the Barbados Workers Union and being able to continue in that regard.
Okay, thank you so much, Peter, and that's it from us at our by-elections discussion desk. We enjoyed spending the time with you. We hope that you enjoyed spending time with us. Shane is back over to you.
Yes, just a quick roundup for viewers. Just wanting to get the numbers, going through them very quickly. You have Ambrose Grosvenor, he copped 70 votes for the UPP. Alex Mitchell, 10 votes for the Barbados Free Party. Grenville Phillips II, 95 votes for Solutions Barbados. For the PDP, David Warren, 80 votes. Floyd Reefer, 1,327 votes. And Miss Toni Moore, elected as a representative for St. George North with 3,154 votes. That's 67.6% of the votes cast in the ballot for this constituency. That's our broadcast for tonight. Decision St. George North. Thank you for spending it with us right here on TV8 and online. I'll see you in the morning, right there on Morning Barbados. Good to have you on. And we'll see you next time when the next elections come around. Be safe until then.
We want more, plenty more. And Toni gonna give us for sure. We want more, plenty more. And Toni gonna give us for sure. We want more quality, more integrity, more ability. Floyd cannot do that for we. We want more, plenty more. And Toni gonna give us for sure. So we voting for Toni, we voting for Toni, we voting for Toni. And the BLP, we voting for Toni, we voting for Toni, we voting for Toni. And the BLP, we want more, plenty more. And Toni gonna give us for sure. We want more, plenty more. And Toni gonna give us for sure. We want more quality, more integrity, more ability. Floyd cannot do that for we. We want more, plenty more. And Toni gonna give us for sure. So we voting for Toni, we voting for Toni, we voting for Toni. And the BLP, we voting for Toni, we voting for Toni. We want more, plenty more. And Toni gonna give us for sure. We want more, plenty more. And Toni gonna give us for sure. We want more quality, more integrity, more ability. Floyd cannot do that for we. 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 Not do that. Floyd cannot do that. Floyd cannot do that for we. Floyd cannot do that for we. We want more, plenty more. And Toni gonna give us for sure. So we Tony and the BLP. We want more, plenty more, and Tony gon' give us for sure. We want more, plenty more, and Tony gon' give us for sure. We want more quality, more integrity, more ability. Floyd cannot do that for we. We want more, plenty more, and Tony gon' give us for sure. So we voting for Tony, we voting for Tony, we voting for Tony.
You ready to rule? Can I talk just a little bit? Can I really talk just a little bit? Can I really talk just a little bit? Hold on! Now is the time.
Now is the time.
Everybody ready?
Everybody ready.
Go tell your friends.
Go tell your friends.
Tell your whole family.
Your whole
and
family.
tell the stranger upon the left.
On the left.
Tell the stranger upon the right.
On the right.
We rolling with BLP. It's one chance to make this right. Together we rolling. Together we moving. Together we working. And we building. Tell me how you're feeling. You know why? All our way with the BLP. All our way one family. All our way with the BLP. All our way with me up. Come let me step.
With me up.
We making it better.
With me up.
Climbing up the ladder.
With me up.
We ain't looking back. Lad. Everybody know, come get aboard. We're taking the more heavy load. Let me come together and make things better. Now we're ready for the road. We don't want no drama. No, get on board with me. It's one big family and we're rolling with BLP. And together we rolling. Together we moving. Together we working. And we building. Tell me how you're feeling. You know why? All our way with the BLP. All our way one family. All our way with the BLP. All our way with me. Come let me step.
With me up.
We making it better.
With me up.
Climbing up the ladder.
With me
And
up.
we ain't looking back, lad.
Red.
We're taking the more heavy load.
Red.
We're taking the more.
This one for the people. 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 'Cause we got to fight for we country. Fight for we country. Fight for we country. Let me go. What we need to
Come together.
what we need to
Come together.
'Cause we got to fight for we country. Fight for we country. Fight for we country.
Fight for we
This country is yours. This country is mine. I know it's the time for we to stand. Far too long, taking we for granted, but we will survive. I know we can. We need the country back where it belongs. Let's give back the hope to everyone. It's time to rise up. Everybody know. If you know we can, time to show them how. Let me go. Barbados, Barbados. We're gonna make it.
I know we can.
We're gonna make it.
Standing as one.
Yeah.
Let me come together. I'll take uncle, sister, and brother. Say, go, have a got the right one for them. Make the right move, try help one another. Let me step on this. Say, what is the week of be strong again, climb back up the ladder. Take it from Exvin and to Ramsey and Dada.
This one for the people. 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 'Cause we got to fight for we country. Fight for we country. Fight for we country. Yeah.
Fight for we country.
What we need to
Come together.
What we need to
Come together.
'Cause we got to fight for we country.
go, let me go. Barbados. Oh, oh, yes. We're gonna make it.
I know we can.
We got to make it.
Standing as one.
This one for the people. 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 This one for the people.
New government, we done with them, we want BLP. Let's rebuild this economy. More jobs and opportunity. Them ain't doing nothing for me. We want BLP, cause we need a change. People want new government. Tell me what's the name? BLP. Everybody come follow me. We want BLP. BLP. This is the right thing for me. What do we need? We done with them, we want BLP. Let's rebuild this economy. More jobs and opportunity. Them ain't doing nothing for me. We want BLP, cause we need a change. People want new government. Tell me what's the name? BLP. Everybody come follow me. We want BLP. BLP. This is the right thing for me. What do we need?
We want more, plenty more, and Toni gon' give us for sure. We want more, plenty more, and Toni gon' give us for sure. We want more quality, more integrity, more ability. Flood cannot do that for we. We want more, plenty more, and Toni gon' give us for sure. So we voting for Toni, we voting for Toni, we voting for Toni, and the BLP. We voting for Toni, we voting for Toni, we voting for Toni, and the BLP. We want more, plenty more, and Toni gon' give us for sure. We want more, plenty more, and Toni gon' give us for sure. We want more quality, more integrity, more ability. Flood cannot do that for we. We want more, plenty more, and Toni gon' give us for sure. So we voting for Toni, we voting for Toni, we voting for Toni, and the BLP. We voting for Toni, we voting for Toni, we voting for Toni, and the BLP. We want more, plenty more, and Toni gon' give us for sure. We want more, plenty more, and Toni gon' give us for sure. We want more quality, more integrity, more ability. Flood cannot do that for we. 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 Flood cannot do that. Flood cannot do that. Flood cannot do that for we. We want more, plenty more, and Toni gon' give us for sure. So we voting for Toni, we voting for Toni, we voting for Toni, and the BLP. We voting for Toni, 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 voting for Toni, and the BLP. We want more, we want more, plenty more, and Toni gon' give us for sure. We want more, plenty more, and Toni gon' give us, and Toni gon' give us for sure. And Toni gon' give us for sure. And Toni gon' give us for sure. You want more quality, more integrity, more ability. Floyd cannot do that for we. We want more, plenty more. And Toni gon' give us for sure.
Tyrone Lovell, please report to the stage. Call it Tyrone Lovell, please report to the stage. And Glenn Clark, please report to the stage immediately. Tyrone Lovell, please come to the stage.
More ability. Floyd cannot do that for we. We want more, plenty more. And Toni gon' give us for sure. So we voting for Toni, we voting for Toni, we voting for Toni. And the BLP. B.O.P. Tell me what you want. B.O.P. Tell me what you want. B.O.P. Louder. B.O.P. Louder. B.O.P. B.O.P. New government. B.O.P. B.O.P. You ready? Well, I'm ready. Yeah. No, everybody them ready. One vote for Barbados Labour Party. Feel the rhythm, boy. We voting for the DLP. Yes, that's the best for we. Boy, we going with the DLP. That's the best for we. Hey.
The COVID pressure and hard time put together. That can't hold me down.
No.
Still can't get me down.
Never.
Because we can work together.
What?
And protect the elder.
Yes.
And uplift the young. And keep Barbados strong.
Yes, we making the best out of every
Please come to the
situation.
stage. Glenn Clark. Dwight Sunderland and Glenn Clark. Dwight Sunderland, Glenn Clark.
We voting for the DLP. That's the best for we. Boy, we going with the DLP. That's the best for we. All together now. DLP, working together, making we stronger. The best for Barbados, I said DLP. Working together, making we
St.
stronger.
George North.
DLP, let me go.
St. George North.
Opportunities coming.
You were promised more. What did you get? What did you get? What did you get? How many of you realized tonight? How many of you realized tonight that their sport votes beat Maxwell?
Oh Lord!
We have put the work in, and we have the result we wanted. We have put the work in, and we have the result we wanted. You know what happened tonight? The bees were stinging. The bees were stinging. We did the work. We got the result. Tonight, we are celebrating. We did the work. We did the work. We got the result. And tonight in St. George North, we have created history. We created history. We have created history. Toni Moore, the first female parliamentary representative to represent us in St. George North. We have, and you know, Dwight Sunderland ably led this campaign. Dwight Sunderland ably led this campaign, and we had a team in the office who brought it home for us. But you know, we've got work to do. And from the outset, Mia Amor Montley, our great political leader, our great prime minister, she said she needs to give us this one. And you deliver. You deliver. You deliver for her. Oh yes, you did. This team, not just the campaign team, but I am totally satisfied, just like you, that Mia Amor Montley has put together the best parliamentary team since elected politics in this country. This team, I tell you tonight. These people here, they're shaking up. But you know, tonight is also about signaling St. George North, Barbados Labour Party family. This is about saying a special thank you to, and we got to say a special thank you to Glenn Clark. Thank you, Glenn Clark. He is, oh, this man is a general. This is a general. This is a general. Every single day, every single night, Glenn Clark has been out there in the field, punching there, walking about, knocking on doors and bringing people out. Imagine this man who represented us for 26 years is now moving on. But at that point, he still was out there giving 500%. That is a man. This is a man. But Labour Party, there's work still to be done. You know, we heard about big works projects and so on. This result is about big works. This is a big works result. This is a big works result. And you know that too. You know that. I know that we did the work and we got who? We got who? Who? Some of you people down in the back that you all don't realize that Toni Moore won this election. We got what? You know, turn up. You know, turn up. Lord. But listen to me. Tonight is not about long speeches. I am only here to introduce these people. And tonight, I feel so good to introduce to you my former parliamentary representative, Glenn Clark. And we need to give him a warm welcome for me. Glenn Clark. Glenn Clark.
Thank you. Good night to all of you. This is indeed a sweet victory, huh? Sweet victory. I want to thank all of you for coming out tonight to show your love for the Barbados Labour Party. I believe that this is the will of God. Will of God. And I want to thank the people of St. George North who have weathered the storm, who have weathered all types of weather in order to bring this victory. I want to thank all those supporters. I want to thank the managers of the team, all the supporters who have come here day after day, night after night. I want to thank all the management team. But above all, I want to thank the Prime Minister. I must tell you that the Prime Minister saw this years ago. She has a vision that you will not know. But I believe that God is working mysteriously within her. Do you believe that? I believe that. And therefore, when I was approached, I humbly decided that this is the will of God. And therefore, I must tell you tonight that I believe in her. And I want all of you to commit to follow the guidance. You see, you must have one leader. We must follow the leader. It's not always, you do not always see what she sees or he sees. But let us agree to follow the leader. Now, this is just the beginning. We have a lot of work to do over the next 2.5 years, or whenever the Prime Minister calls the election. This is only a test case. So you have to work in all of your constituencies across Barbados to make sure we have victory. Remember, the Dems will not be sleeping. There will be regathering as of tonight as well. So we cannot sleep. We have to move forward as one. We have to move forward as one political party behind one leader. So I want to congratulate Toni for doing her best. I want to congratulate the team. And I love all of you. Take care. Good night. And God bless you.
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, former MP. Thank you, former MP. But I can tell you now, Clarky, I think I like Tony better than you.
Oh Lord!
Don't feel too bad. Don't feel too bad. I done my MP. I traded the old one. I got a new one, man. I feeling good about that. But listen, remember, we went for more, and what we got? We went for more, and what we got? We want to do the reefer. Get more licks, man. More licks, man. That's the big works. Big works. But you know, I warned the boy. Y'all remember early, I warned the boy. You know, I tell the boy, forget this thing. I tell the boy, don't turn up. I tell the boy, don't turn up for nomination. You remember that? I tell the boy that there. And he gone out there, you know, and I know he like the cricket and thing. And he ain't really had the best batting average. But you know the average he getting out tonight didn't get neither. No, but you can't get up and big people things. And then you can't big people things. You can't come and big people things. And that's the same thing with Verla. I almost said Donkey, but I meant Verla. You can't get big people things. Listen, but let me say to you, we got tonight only to celebrate. We are only to celebrate. And I'm going to bring to you the campaign manager, the man who pulled it all together, Dwight Sanderley.
Good night. Good night to the Labour Party family. Good night to Barbados. Good night to St. George. Now, you know, we say wherever St. George goes, the country goes. And Glenn Clark, my very good friend, in 2012, told me that I would do better than Saluital. And I did better than Saluital. I told Glenn Clark that Toni Moore, she would do better than him. And she did better than him. But I want you tonight, in the 2 minutes that I have, I want you to salute this man called Glenn Clark. Glenn, I need a photo with you next to me. Come, Glenn. I get very emotional when we talk about politicians that are sincere and are committed to the people. Politicians who are homegrown. And we showed the people of this country during his 26 years of representation what a true homegrown politician should be like. He's an example. And I stand here next to him feeling proud that he has mentored me in becoming what I am today in terms of a true homegrown, grassroots, and committed politician to my people. And it would be remiss of me if I congratulate my sister who has done exceptionally well and don't pay homage to this man that has been dear to this great institution called the Barbados Labour Party and to the people of St. George North. So tonight for me, my tenure as campaign manager is not about me. It is about the support that this man has given me. And behind the scene, he called me there day and night, every morning, every night to find out how I was doing. He said to me, the future of St. George is in your hands and in Toni Moore's hands. And I want to thank him from the bottom of my heart. And I want you to thank him too. But this is not about Glenn now, my sister. A woman. There are two Leonists now in the Labour Party. Santia and Toni. I spent the last 7 weeks with her. I learned a lot from her. Sometimes I thought she managed me. I didn't manage her. I want to thank you, my sister. The Labour Party is in good hands in St. George. And I want to thank, as I close, the Honorable Mayor Amor Mortley, who gave me the opportunity, and she gave the young parliamentarians the opportunity to lead and to gain the experience and the exposure to take this country forward. I want to thank her and my colleagues, the people of St. George, the persons in the office, Paris, Natasha, Crystal, and I can call and all calling names. This campaign, I became stronger as a representative and as a person who understands politics as a result of those persons who stood with me during this campaign. And I want to thank you all for supporting this party. Put your support behind me, Amor Mortley and Toni Moore. Toni Moore has been chosen because Toni Moore will take this constituency to the next level. Glenn Clark did his job, and Toni Moore now has her job to do to take it to another level. So I want to thank you for the support. That's all I have to say. God bless you, and let's party. I love you, Labour Party!
Thank you, thank you, thank you. We're going to keep it going. You know, we don't want you to get wet. I know some of you don't mind getting wet for more. You don't mind if you get wet for more. You want more rain. More rain. Okay, go on, don't take it. Keep on your shirt. Now listen. Listen, people. Barbados Labour Party, we have done our job. We have done our job. We have Toni Moore in St. George North. The Barbados Labour Party is solid. The Barbados Labour Party is ready, ably led by Mayor Amor Mortley and ably assisted by Toni Moore. What did you want? What did you get? What did you want? What did you get? More, 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 more.
To whom much is given, much is required. Good night, family in St. George North. I stand very humble tonight, and you know what? I said, to whom much is given, much is required. And that does not faze me, because St. George North, I am ready. I remember well, and some of you may have heard me, I remember well when this journey started. And one of the first things that it did to me, in a positive way, I could reflect after a while, it made me lose some weight. Because I was so anxious. It was a kind of anxiety, not because I felt that I couldn't or that I shouldn't. But there are so many things that one has to consider when such a big ask is made. And I say a big ask because leading people or putting yourself in a position where you're representing people is not easy. And if I didn't understand it fully before, of course I understand what leadership is from a Barbados Workers Union perspective. But if I didn't understand it before, this 7 weeks taught me very easily that representing a constituency is not easy work at all, at all, at all. And so for me tonight is hats off to Glenn Clark for the amazing work that he has done for the past 26 years in this constituency. Now, I started by telling you that I would not be one given to making big promises. And I went further to tell you, anytime I say something to you, that is my commitment made to you. And so during this campaign, there are a number of things and a number of works that have been rolled out. Things that are planned out and ready for implementation in this constituency. And I did not seek once to use this platform to highlight them as priorities. Yes, I shared priorities, but there are some other things that I refuse to share because it's important for me, and I think it's important for you, St. George North, to understand that an election is not about making vain and idle promises. An election is a covenant that you are making with the people that you are seeking to represent. And if people are to take you seriously, especially when there is so much hope and despair around us, and I know that there is in a number of homes, if people are to take you seriously, then it's more important for you to do than say. And St. George North, as I come very thrilled tonight, very elated, and some of you may think that I look contained. And the truth is that right now I don't know a single expression to say that I feel, because there are a number of things that I'm feeling right now. But I stand here tonight thanking you, my constituents, thanking you, my family, for the confidence you have placed in me, and committing to you that I will not let you down. You have asked for more, and tonight is the start of that. I want to thank you in a very special way for treating to the issues in this campaign and seeing past propaganda and recognizing that this election was not about a personality. It was not about a profile. It was about people and the commitment that all of us need to make to people. And I have been happy. I've been thankful. In fact, I think I'm blessed to be coming in a by-election where I had all the Barbados Labour Party family available to me and available, therefore, to you, so that you can see and recognize and be reminded of the commitment that there is to the people, not only of this constituency, but the people of this country. And St. George North, as we begin this journey together, and as I thank you, I don't even want to get into start naming people. Prime Minister is better at that than I am, because I may forget a number of people. But I just want to say thank you to everybody that I've thanked before. Thank you, especially though I must say to the team here, the campaign manager. Dwight is stressed, you know. Real
Lord.
stress. Not easy to deal with, and imagine he gonna be managing me. But he has done a tremendous job, and one thing that I've appreciated is that even where we differed in terms of how we should do things, we did not clash, because we are working, we recognize we were working and committed to the same purpose. And that is what this victory is about tonight. Because when you work with each other and when you can share commitment to a common purpose, much can be achieved, and much has been achieved. And St. George North is not for me to tell you it, but I know that all of you will be looking forward to seeing it. I've had many people today saying, Toni, am I going to see you still? Are you still going to be knocking on doors? Are you still going to be available to us? And I just stopped short of saying, give me the vote and watch me, because I like being original and I didn't want to use nobody else's thing. But you have given me the vote. And from now on, you are going to watch me work on your behalf as this constituency and this country grows from strength to strength with any service that I can offer. I want to say, in closing, a very big thank you to my family. And I saved that particularly to last, because in this journey, family is extremely important. You want to shield your family from so much, and for sure that was a big part of my consideration when I was asked. Because my family is a very private and a very private kind of family, don't like a lot of attention. And so tonight I want to thank them for supporting me from the get-go. I want to thank them for supporting this mission, and I want to thank them in a very special way for walking with me, not physically, because many of them could not have endured it over the past 7 weeks, but I want to thank them for walking with me side by side through this process. And I also say a very special thank you tonight, as I speak of family, to my Barbados Workers Union family. And I want to give a special shout out tonight to Sir Roy Trotman, my predecessor, who recognized the importance of the journey that I was committing to, and who committed himself to walking every step of the way with me. I just end, therefore, by saying to you all, thank you, I love you, and let's do this. God bless.
That was my MP and your MP. Oh, yeah. Now, listen. Toni said earlier that she doesn't know what feeling she has to express what's going through her now. But I want you people who witnessed this victory tonight to remember to... She's already taking charge. She's already taking charge. Yes, please. Yeah. I want you to remember the feeling you got when the returning officer spoke. I want you to remember that feeling you got tonight when he said that Toni Moore has been duly elected to represent the constituency of St. George North. Remember that feeling. Remember that feeling. And also remember that tonight is the night that we created history, not only by electing the first female, but you know, again, every single box we got, every one. So if you were them, you lost all. If you were a B, you got all. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to keep it going. You know, the next speaker is a tower of strength, a political guerrilla. When we took charge, people didn't think that this country could come back. But she held it by the scruff of the neck and she put it back. Stopped the downgrades, bought trucks for sanitation, got buses on the road, cleaned up the streets, bring us back. No more downgrades. We're getting upgrades. Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Owen Seymour Arthur said, Owen Seymour Arthur said that she will go down in history as perhaps one of the very best prime ministers this country will ever have. Ladies and gentlemen, Mia Amor Mortley. Mia Amor Mortley. Mia Amor Mortley.
Oh Lord!
You know, there's a warmth in my heart tonight. And there's a warmth in my heart, first and foremost, for the people of St. George North. This by-election will come to be regarded as a difficult one. It was a by-election held in the middle of a global pandemic. It was a by-election which has presented for the people of this country the first woman ever to be elected in the history of this constituency. It is a by-election that says that character matters and leadership matters. And I stood on this platform last night to ask you to walk with us and to send a convincing message. Well, I told the country just now after the returning officer spoke that I said to Toni 7 weeks ago that if she could muster and get 65% of the vote, she will have exceeded my expectations because she only had 7 weeks within which to function. Toni Moore tonight and the Barbados Labour Party got almost 68% of the vote and exceeded every expectation, Toni. So that when I tell you that my heart is warm tonight, it is warm first and foremost because I have the privilege and honor of leading a country that has a strong democracy, that has had an election without incident, without crime, AG, that has had an election day that has had no rancorous incident, that has seen 6 candidates go forward and present themselves for you to choose. I feel warm in my heart tonight because 2 years ago, 29 months to be precise, you gave us an overwhelming mandate after 5 years and almost 90 days of a Democratic Labour Party term. You gave us a mandate that gave us 74% of the vote then. And we came in and we have had to face some of the most difficult times that this country has faced since independence. We are not where we want to be, but we are on the right path of becoming world class in this country because you Barbadians are standing and walking with us every step of the way. But the lesson in this is that every day is not sunny. We know it now because the showers of blessing are enveloping us. But we must never, never, never turn our head away from reality. And the example of this election is that whatever the challenges, whatever the difficulties, we shall face it, we shall fix it, we shall work together as a people, and we shall succeed in overcoming all challenges. I want to thank some people because I know the rain is coming down, and I will not speak long. But I have to thank first and foremost Toni for being the excellent candidate that she was. I have said over and over her work ethic is second to none. You can get as good but not better. Thank you, and I have every confidence that yes, when the man told you that you were a woman in politics, it reminded me of a letter that I got from Rogi when we left the arbitration in Trinidad, which said the same thing. Because too often politicians are treated as pariahs. But we have come to public life and to politics to elevate the quality of representation in this country. And Toni, I see in you that commitment to do it as the rest of the Barbados Labour Party family has been doing it. I want to thank my members of Parliament and Cabinet for stepping up to the plate and showing that this is one family. They pulled out the stops and worked across the length and breadth of this constituency with Toni in the last 7 weeks. As I keep saying, you know that I can be hard, you know that I can be difficult. But I am only hard and difficult because I believe
that in every step of the way we can reach and reach and reach to higher heights. I want to thank the campaign manager, Dwight Sutherland, for a wonderful job and for putting this constituency first in the last 7 weeks, in spite of even all of the other things that commanded his time. Dwight, I know what it is too for a Prime Minister to have put confidence in me as a first-time Member of Parliament and as a young MP. And I thank you for allowing me to do the same with you in this constituency and to have stellar results. I want to thank the campaign coordinator, Pat Paris, who has literally been like a rock of Gibraltar and who has stood here every day and every night for the last 7 weeks. Pat, you continue to be that linchpin for the family of the Barbados Labour Party, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I want to thank the General Secretary who helped me, because without him, Toni, we would not have had you as a candidate. And from day one, the General Secretary did the heavy lifting with me in order to make this moment possible. I thank also the Attorney General and Santia, because the two of them have had to carry more weight than usual in the last few weeks. And I thank them for stepping into the breach and keeping the government fully afloat while our attention was diverted. I want to thank, Toni, your family. I know what it is for a family to be literally catapulted into the center of public commentary, good and bad, even when they didn't step up to the plate to bargain for it. And in particular, forgive me if I single out Antonio, who has been a new star in the Barbados Labour Party family and who has literally mobilized the young people of St. George North in a way. My brother, I am sorry to tell your sister that she cannot keep you alone in St. George North, because you now belong to the family of the Barbados Labour Party fully. And there's so many, but I have to thank this young man. Shane, come forward. Because just as Antonio was a star, as Toni's brother, Shane, who is Glyn's son, Glyn, this young man is going to exceed anything and everything that you have done in public life. I have been so impressed with his commitment, with his warmth, with his easygoing manner like his father, with the extent to which everybody knows him and he knows everybody. And my brother, I know that once you stay the course, that the future of this party is great with people like you and Antonio and Sabrina and all of the rest who have been around. I don't see Tall Man tonight. There's a whole set of people. Tori, a whole set. I want to thank people who also on the communications team. You know, we deliberately didn't do the billboards. We didn't do a lot of things because we were conscious that people are going through a rough time. But we had obviously to still have a limited stage setup and the ability to be able to reach the homes, not just in Barbados, but across the diaspora. And I want to thank the best communications and logistics team anywhere in the Caribbean. Anywhere in the Caribbean. I want to thank Nigel. Where's Nigel? The election agent and the president of the branch of St. George North. And also to Faye Burke and to Kevin Rowe, whose legitimate aspirations might have wanted them to be here. But sometimes in the life of a party, you have to go with a national approach. And I said to you at the beginning, I felt that the pressure on working people, the pressure on the laboring classes was such in this country, in this region, and across the globe, that if we did not stand up and band together with labor,
we would run the risk of eroding the gains since the 1930s. And given that it was this Barbados Labour Party that formed and worked hard to form the Barbados Workers' Union, we felt that we had a moral duty, a philosophical obligation to be able to stand up for working people, and I needed strength in heavy lifting, and hence the choice of Toni Moore as our candidate tonight. And I thank the people and the National Council of the Labour Party and the members for allowing us this opportunity to create history and to allow us to strengthen our hand to protect you, the working people of this country. I want also to thank Hartley Henry, who continues to be a strong advisor and also a strong commentator on the quality of political discourse, not just in Barbados, but in the Caribbean. Thank you very much, Hartley. And ladies and gentlemen, I want first and last to thank you, the canvassers and the supporters and the heavy lifters, who over the course of the last 7 weeks, we would be nothing if it were not for you to give us the oxygen and to keep us up here alive. This party is not about maximum leadership. This party must be a family moving together. And I ask us only to accept, as I said at the beginning, every day may not be sunny. Every day may not be rainy. But if we set a common mission as a people, as we did, not to have our dollar devalued, and we work together, we can succeed as we did in saving our dollar. We can succeed as we did in reversing 23 downgrades, and now to bring ourselves back to a situation where the international community has confidence in the direction in which we are going, even in spite of the obstacles. But the only thing that can make it better, the only thing that can make us greater, the only thing that can cause us to stay the course is you, the people of Barbados, working together as one. And if we can work as one, then as I said, and I asked them to line up the song, this is who we are, because this is who we are. This is who we are. How we talk, as Gabby would say, all of the things that cause us to stand up and try to work together. And the warmth that I felt today as I moved across St. George, nobody was offensive. Nobody was trying to be obnoxious. Nobody was trying to be transactional. And I want to make that point, because we have too long in this country complained about the nature of transactional politics. There was none of that. And I therefore feel that if this is the example that we can set here, let us spread the word, let us spread the gospel, and let us continue to make this country the best that it can be, and for us to become world class in 7 years. The final thank you, and it seems as though rain will always come, and barring a major storm or a major climate event on Saturday, I want to say to you that we will come together to move off from here at 2:30 on Saturday afternoon, to move through and thank the people of St. George North. There will obviously have to be protocols because we still have COVID, but we can do it and plan it in a way that will not put anybody at risk. And I want to thank those of you who have come out to the meetings, because you adhered to the protocols. You wear your mask. You have your sanitizers. We watch you at night. And we know that you have acted in the interest of your candidate, of your party, but without putting yourself or anybody else at risk. Right. And my friends, 2:30 from here, we want to move off. So listen out for the word. So long as there is no major storm, Saturday we shall say thank you as we drive through the hills and valleys and the byways and highways of St. George North. Now, some people laugh at me for singing a night in here. And for the last few years, whenever they ask me to sing at karaoke, poor Vivian, God bless her soul, she's not with us, I would say to them, me, to make mock sport at myself, why can't I sing? But I promise you that if I win the election, I would sing for you election night. Well, the last election, the Dems conspired to ensure that the results didn't come until near 4 o'clock in the morning. And there was no opportunity to sing. But I want to be a ventriloquist tonight. And I'm going to call Toni to come and sing for me and with me. Because I'm told that it is Nigel's birthday. And Tennyson's birthday. Where are you, gentlemen? Can we see you? Or are we forced to let you hear us? And if you hear us, I might join in it, in which case it might go off tune very fast. Let us go, Toni.
Happy birthday to you.
Too slow. Happy birthday
to you.
Happy birthday,
Nigel and Tennyson. Happy birthday to you.
One more time with gusto. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Nigel and Tennyson.
Happy birthday
to you.
My friends, you now know I cannot sing. And if I could have sang, I would not be a politician or prime minister today because I would have been entertaining you. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart and simply to say you are simply the best. And I cannot think of a better and prouder people to have the responsibility of leading. And I thank you, and I ask us to walk together as we continue to face difficult challenges, but rooted in the fact that we have a path to prosperity, a path to progress, but above all else, that we can become world class and punch above our weight as we have done before, so shall we again. Good night, and God bless you all. And everybody, as we mingle, whenever we leave here, just get home safe for me. I don't want no bad news at all tonight. Thank you. Music!
Throughout the world, it's a time that seems so dark. Inside we're closer, not apart. The sun still shines in our hearts. Hey, it's our world. We must
got to separate so we can get back together again. And if you're ready, let me go. Alright.
One world, so we have to live together. One blood, looking out for one another. One love, to me sister and me brother. Even if you're rich or poor, white or black, it doesn't matter.
We've been tested before. Out victorious we came.
What we know for sure, we will rise again.
Together, better, stronger.
When the world closed, our hearts opened. When fear ruled, love also deepened. When borders closed, boundaries widened.
With no choice, in one voice.
Let the whole world rejoice, from near and from far.
This is who we are. Yeah.
Love will always see us through. This is who we are.
We want more, plenty more. And Toni gon' give us for sure. We want more, plenty more. And Toni gon' give us for sure. We want more quality, more integrity, more ability. Flood cannot do that for we. We want more, plenty more. And Toni gon' give us for sure. So we voting for Toni, we voting for Toni, we voting for Toni. And the BLP, we voting for Toni, we voting for Toni, we voting for Toni. And the BLP, we want more, plenty more. And Toni gon' give us for sure. We want more, plenty more. And Toni gon' give us for sure. We want more quality, more integrity, more ability. Flood cannot do that for we. We want more, plenty more. And Toni gon' give us for sure. So we voting for Toni, we voting for Toni, we voting for Toni. And the BLP, we voting for Toni, we voting for Toni, we voting for Toni. And the BLP.
Tell me what you want, BLP. All aboard, what the people want, BLP. What Barbados want, BLP. Whoa, yo, oh, yeah. Well, let me go, let me go, let me go. We making history, we heading out for victory. We voting BLP, that is the best for the country. We making history, we heading out for victory. Barbados rising up, cause we got me out with me. Oh, 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 so come along, oh, we moving on, oh, we must be strong, we want upliftment. So all aboard, it's time to roll, so let me go. All aboard, cause everybody fed up and we done with them. We done. No opportunity, so we done with them. We want the best for the country, so we done with them. So vote BLP, call we done with them. Whoa, oh, 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 oh. BLP, comfy help, we build confidence and lift up the country. And all of we done know, me a going get it right, me a going do it right. We making history, we heading out for victory. We voting BLP, that is the best for the country. We making history, we heading out for victory. Barbados rising up, cause we got me out with me. Oh, 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 so come along, oh, we moving on, oh, we must be strong, we want upliftment. So all aboard, it's time to roll, so let me go. All aboard, cause everybody fed up and we done with them. We done. No opportunity, so we done with them. We want the
best for the country, so we done with them. So vote BLP, call we done with them. BLP, comfy help we build confidence and lift up the country. And all of we done know, me a going get it right, me a going do it right. We making history, we heading out for victory. We voting BLP, that is the best for the country. We making history, we heading out for victory. Barbados rising up, cause we got me a with me. So come along, we moving on, we must be strong. We want upliftment, so all aboard, it's time to roll. So let we go, all aboard, cause everybody fed up and we done with them. We done. No opportunity, so we done with them. We want the best for the country, so we done with them. So vote BLP, call we done with them. Done with them.
Hey, this one for the people. 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 Cause we got to fight for we country. Fight for we country.